Cool Figure TV. Revolutionary salute. Revolutionary salute. Like, share, subscribe. Welcome to the House of Revolution. You know I'm your humble host, the Yao Mean of Revolution, and we have Putin versus Trump head to head. It's the time is now. It's all here. Will we get peace or will we get war? Before we get into that, be sure to wipe your feet. That means hit the like button, like, share, subscribe, support the platform, y'all. Well, Trump's revolutionary salute now said what he will and won't do. I'm hearing he's giving Putin ultimatums on Putin must end the war. But Putin has his own ultimatums to Trump that we must get into. Trump better be careful. Salute.
Well, my dear truth seekers, as you can see, the 47th President of the United States, Donald Trump, has failed to keep his election promise and end the conflict in Ukraine 24 hours after taking office. As you can see, 2 days have passed since the inauguration of Donald Trump, and the current conflict in Ukraine is still ongoing. By the way, watching the victorious advance of the Russian army on the battlefield, it becomes clear that Russian soldiers absolutely do not care about Donald Trump's statements regarding Ukraine and the upcoming negotiations.
See, Trump better let his ego, put his ego to the side, bro. Ain't no win. It was never no win. It was never no victory. It was never no saving face for America. That all that bullshit bluster he was promoting. You can't do nothing but sign over the surrender. That's it. It's nothing else for them. And if he make the terrible mistake, I was thinking about this last time. If Trump make the fucking mistake to say he's going to send peacekeepers to stop this war, he's going to regret it.
Russian soldiers, despite the difficult geopolitical situation in the world and the statements of the new U.S. president, continue to liberate towns and cities in all key directions of the front, including the Kursk region. So, over the past 24 hours, Russian troops have liberated several more strategically important settlements in the Kursk and Kharkiv directions of the front. In particular, on the morning of January 22nd, war correspondents stated that units of the group of troops
on the news in India, they not playing it over here. There's a list. They arresting their generals. This is what Hitler was doing. They are arresting generals and colonels. See, Zelensky's trying to stop the coup d'etat from getting overthrown. He's arresting people for losing territory. Hey, that ain't what you do in no democracy. Hey, and this is serious business. Hey, the generals did the best they can. Now Zelensky wants to arrest people to blame and say, see, you the reason Russia took this territory. Man, that's a lie. The reason Russia took it because you fought the Russians. So you're going to get your territory seized. But the United States is not even reporting Zelensky's over there arresting generals and shit. It's the beginning of the end.
Troops under the designation Sever had liberated the settlement of Nikolaevo Dorino in the southwestern part of the Kursk region. Commenting on the liberation of this settlement, war correspondents noted the professional actions of the Ashurian paratroopers from the 83rd Separate Guards Airborne Assault Brigade. According to them, only thanks to the Ashurian paratroopers, this settlement was liberated from the enemy.
I got bad feelings.
Moreover, on January 22nd, the Russian army also liberated the strategically important settlement of Zapadnoy, north of Kupiansk. The liberation of this settlement indicates that Russian troops have expanded the bridgehead on the right bank of the Oskol River and approached the northern part of Kupiansk as close as possible. Currently, Russian troops are only 8 kilometers from the northern outskirts of Kupiansk. In total, over the past 24 hours, while Donald Trump was taking the oath of office and talking to reporters, Russian troops liberated 60 square kilometers of territory in the Special Military Operation Zone. Thus, Russia has once again proved that Moscow is the main winner of the current conflict, and that the Kiev regime and its Western masters will have to accept Putin's conditions, which he announced last fall. In particular, Vladimir Putin demanded the complete demilitarization and denazification of Ukraine, Kiev's refusal to join
Ain't
NATO,
nothing
and
changed.
recognition of Luhansk, Donetsk, Zaporizhia, and Kherson regions
Come on,
as an
ain't nothing
integral.
changed. Demilitarization. Do you know what that means, nigga? You can't have no fucking army no more, bro. No, you tried that. We didn't like what you tried to do with it. You can have some police officers. Haiti ain't got no army. Ha, Putin say, see this? Haiti ain't got no army. So don't tell us you deserve no fucking army. You don't have no army no more. You can protect your citizens. Denazification. Oh, y'all still Nazis? Huh? Y'all still alive? Cool. Then the war ain't stopping.
Part of the Russian Federation.
Putin still got the same demands. No Nazis in Ukraine, nigga.
However, judging by recent statements by Donald Trump, the new U.S. authorities risk repeating the fate of the Biden administration and feeling all the bitterness of defeat on their own skin. In particular, a few hours ago, during an interview with American journalists, Donald Trump made it clear that Washington would make every effort to end the conflict in Ukraine exclusively according to the U.S. scenario. In particular, Donald Trump said that if Vladimir Putin does not agree to reach a deal, the United States will not only continue to arm Ukraine, but also impose new sanctions on Russia. According to Donald Trump, the Russian economy is allegedly going through hard times, and in this regard, Vladimir Putin will have to agree to Washington's terms.
See, I don't like these lies that Trump is telling. Listen, we have to deal with the fact that Trump went on TV and told some lies. Russian economy is great, Trump. Why are you lying to these people, bro? Why are you doing the same lies Joe Biden was telling? Russia has the best economy in Europe. Huh? How did that happen? Well, they want to sanction Russia. I said this at the beginning of that fucking war. Russia don't need Europe. Europe need them. Russia has plenty of friends. The most populous countries on this planet is doing good business with Russia. See this arrogance of the Europeans think everybody need them. And without them, your country falls to shit. That's a lie. But Trump is continuing this lie. Then he lied saying Russia lost 1 million soldiers. Come on, Trump. Did that make you feel good inside? That's a lie. Ukraine is the one who lost 1 million soldiers. And America and NATO probably lost about 10,000.
Thus, Donald Trump made it clear that Washington would not accept Russia's conditions on Ukraine, even despite the fact that Russian troops continue their victorious offensive.
Washington will not accept Russia. You don't have to accept nothing. You don't have to accept it, bro. Putin don't give a shit about if the U.S. accept it because he letting them know this is going to happen. Now, if you want to say we brought this piece together, Putin let you get in on some of the celebrations. But if you want total humiliation and then keep lying to the American people and keep continuing to resist, resistance is futile. Y'all can't beat Russia.
Offensive on the battlefield, and the Ukrainian army is almost completely defeated. This statement by Donald Trump caused a mixed reaction among the expert community. In particular, an authoritative French expert and political scientist Tatiana Stanovaya said that Donald Trump, like his predecessor, is poorly aware of Russia's real capabilities. And therefore, the West, led by the United States, still cannot achieve any of its goals. The French expert noted that information about the Russian economy that Donald Trump had received was erroneous. According to her, currently, the Russian economy is stronger than ever, especially against the background of Western economies. Tatiana Stanovaya noted that the Russian economy is functioning perfectly and is a source of Putin's pride. Over the past 3 years, Russia's economy has become the largest in Europe and has even entered the top 5 most powerful and largest economies in the world by GDP purchasing power parity, overtaking countries such as Germany and Japan. And this trend is growing with each new month. By the way, this fact was also recognized by the Bloomberg agency. According to American experts from Bloomberg, Russian budget revenues have reached record levels, even despite tough Western sanctions. It is reported that in December 2024, the Russian economy brought into the national treasury a record 4 trillion rubles. American experts noted that such a sharp growth in budget revenues in Russia has not been observed over the past 25 years. Thus, it can be safely assumed that Donald Trump will not be able to scare Vladimir Putin with the help of other economic sanctions. And his desire to talk to Russia from a position of strength will fail completely. Trump's second mistake is that he sincerely believes that
revolutionary salute to our queen. Yaya's kids for the donation to the war chest. Revolution is a way of life. Absolutely appreciate the love, queen. Salute to you. Roll up that good dinner, man. Salute to y'all revolutionaries who just fell in the building.
That Vladimir Putin allegedly dreams of ending the current conflict in Ukraine as soon as possible. In fact, Vladimir Putin absolutely does not care about the timing of the continuation of this war. For Putin, the most important thing is the complete expulsion.
Putin is a grand chess master. He knows Trump is an egomaniac and will reject total surrender. I absolutely now believe Putin wants Donald Trump to not negotiate with him. He wants the Americans to continue to make the same mistakes they're making right now, because that is what's devastating Ukraine. And he knows it's nothing. They can send 1 million troops to Ukraine and they will be totally annihilated by the Russians. That's a major fact. They got their people. Russia already proved U.S. and NATO don't got no weapons that they can that the Russians don't have. That's better. They already proved that. All that. What happened to the F-16s? When they sent some F-16, that shit didn't work. What happened to the tanks? That didn't work. What happened to the javelin systems, the missile systems? What happened to the attackers? How about all that miracle bullshit? Same nonsense Hitler pulled. The wonder weapons. Russia and them laughed at that. You pulling the Nazi tactic of wonder weapons. Anytime you say you got some weapons that's going to help change the tide of war, you already lost.
Of the North Atlantic Alliance and pro-Western politicians from Ukraine. For Putin, it is important that Ukraine becomes a pro-Russian country again, which will not pose a threat to the Russian-speaking population. And in order to achieve this goal, Vladimir Putin is ready to take even the most radical steps. If Donald Trump refuses Putin's terms, the Russian army will continue to absorb Ukrainian territories. This will continue until a country like Ukraine disappears from the map of the world completely. Moreover, an influential Russian politician and member of the Federation Council's Defense and Security Committee, Dmitry Rogozin, urged Donald Trump not to repeat Biden's mistakes. According to him, if Donald Trump refuses to accept Russia's terms, Moscow will have to destroy anyone in its way. I appeal to Donald Trump. You can really stop this conflict very quickly. To do this, you just need to give the order to suspend military and financial assistance to Kyiv. If you refuse to do this, Russia will have to destroy anyone in its way, including all Washington's puppets, who illegally continue to hold power in Ukraine. You all must come to terms with the fact that this war will end only on Russia's conditions, Dmitry Rogozin said.
So President Donald Trump has just issued an ultimatum to Russian President Putin. It's time for peace right now. And the warmongers in Congress and Ukraine are pissed off. So we'll have more on Zelensky's response here in a minute. First, President Trump sent a message to Putin a few hours ago telling him to come to the peace table or he will impose vicious sanctions on Russia, the likes of which he's never seen before. Which is pretty ominous warning from the Trump team. This is something, of course, that President Biden didn't do. He didn't do it all, never pushed Putin towards the peace table, even though Putin repeatedly said they wanted to talk peace over and over again. In fact, the Biden administration and Boris Johnson stopped peace talks, destroyed the peace agreement in 2022, you'll recall, and they basically was already signed. Of course, President Putin, Zelensky had an agreement in place. And if you look at that agreement, what's stunning about it is that a huge swath of land that Russia now controls wouldn't have been under Russian control back in 2022. Huge pieces of land in eastern Ukraine where ethnic Russians have lived for years, which were under constant bombardment and a genocide, would have actually reverted to Ukraine. Now that's off the table because they scuttled this entire peace agreement in 2022. Biden only ever presented Russia with two options: fight to the death or surrender immediately. And Putin was never going to do either of those things. Why would he? Since 2014, the Obama administration and the CIA-backed coup that took over Ukraine in 2014 and set up multiple CIA field offices all over Ukraine, it is a de facto proxy state for the CIA in Ukraine to roll out digital IDs, to do everything that they wanted to do, biolabs there, baby-making factories. Oh yeah, baby-making factories in Ukraine. Ukraine being one of the number one exporters of babies in the world, and baby parts. Disgusting. That's your CIA for you in Ukraine. So the Obama CIA team helped Ukraine carry out a genocide against ethnic Russians in eastern Ukraine. So surrender immediately was like the only response from the Obama team and the Biden team. It was never an option for Putin and Russia. Now, another stunning development this morning from Trump on the war in Ukraine. Ukraine is pissed this morning when they learned that Trump just halted any weapons or arms being sent to Ukraine. Uh-oh. Sorry, all your weapons are cut off now. The only reason this war was continuing at all is because the Biden administration kept sending weapons and ammunition to Ukraine. The teat is about to dry up. No more teats. No more teats of milk flowing with American weapons into Ukraine. That stopped. According to the Kiev Post, yes, Ukrainian journalists confirming today that all shipments of weapons and military equipment to Ukraine have stopped at NATO bases in Europe. According to preliminary estimates right now, we're talking about several thousand tons of weapons, according to Megatron on X, and military equipment stopped. Sorry, Ukraine. It's all dried up. Here's the Kiev Post. All Pentagon officials, and this is a huge other piece of the story, even more stunning, all Pentagon employees involved in arms supplies to Kiev have been fired or suspended. And President Trump has put in place a large-scale audit of the misuse of funds for aid to Ukraine.
Wow. It's really too late that we can't have Victoria Nuland still in that job so that we could fire her.
Well, forget firing her, lock her up.
Yes,
like that. Yeah, she's a criminal, a warmongering criminal. We should lock up Victoria Nuland. So she's still floating around there. Maybe you can arrest her.
No, she's not. She's now at the non-governmental organization. So
well, I mean, she's not in. Yeah, but I mean, she's still floating around.
Oh, yes, yeah. The fingers of her, the fingerprints of her her time there is still blaring. If you just take some fingerprint dust.
So on top of all that, we actually have new Secretary of State Marco Rubio saying that the war in Ukraine must stop right now. So, okay, we were down on Marco Rubio as a choice. Of course, he is a bit of a warmonger. So the fact that he's saying we need to end, I think he's towing the company line, towing President Trump's wishes to end this war. He says we need to stop this war right now.
Well, I'm also a little concerned because, liberals love to talk about how Trump is under the thumb of Vladimir Putin, despite copious amounts of U.S. dollars, tax dollars through the U.S. Justice Department looking into how that works. But in his post this morning on Truth Social, Donald Trump said, "I'm not looking to hurt Russia. I love the Russian people and have always had a good relationship with Putin." And this despite Russia's radical left Russia hoax, all of that. He's addressing that, right? And he's saying, that being said, now is the time to come to the table. Now is the time for us to make a deal. He says it's only going to get worse. And as Clayton said, he's using his leverage of taxes, tariffs, and sanctions on everything being sold by Russia to the United States. Now, the Biden administration did try sanctions, has been doing so for the last 2 years in a way that has hurt the rest of us. So the question remains, how can Trump do this in a way the Biden administration did not? Because the Biden administration did try to sanction Europe, try to sanction Russia to get this to stop, and were not able to do it. But they also had no direct lines of communications, with which President Putin has said he's ready for at any given moment.
Meanwhile, Ukrainian President Zelensky is asking today for U.S. troops to be sent to the front lines in the war with Russia. During the Biden administration, Zelensky, of course, repeatedly promised that Ukraine could fight the war on their own terms as long as NATO allies sent weapons. Just keep us going with the weapons. We've got plenty of men. We'll get 80-year-olds. We'll get people with Down syndrome, which they did. We'll get people who are
pregnant women. They like that.
We'll grab everybody we can off of our streets in Ukraine. So just keep sending us weapons. We'll kill off everyone in our country. We don't care.
And
We've
yours too. What a deal.
So now President Zelensky, he's doubled down on this. He's asked repeatedly for U.S. involvement. Now he's asking, now that President Trump has basically paused all foreign aid, now he wants U.S. troops to go to the front lines in Ukraine. He said these troops will not be just sitting in cushy, nice cities like in the center of big cities, relaxed. Those are his words. And instead they will be on the front lines. So he wants U.S. troops to go to the front lines. Watch.
It's great if we will have troops. But we have to understand that the troops will not be in the center of the capital.
Yes.
They will not have relaxed time. Yes, it's very important, because I heard that some allies said that, yes, but it's okay, we can be in the center of some city, and then no, we don't need such contingent.
You want them at the front line?
Yes, with our people, of course. Yes, because this means security, and that's it. So, but it can't be without the United States. I will explain you why. Even if some European friends think that it can be, no, it will not be. First of all, nobody will risk without the United States. The second, that's what can divide NATO, divide EU and USA. That is a goal and dream of Putin, to divide this unity.
He's odious. Also, recall that he told us many times that he does not need U.S. troop presence. He only wanted the weapons because Ukraine had the wherewithal to use those weapons by themselves. He promised us that at the very last time he addressed U.S. Congress. He said he did not need U.S. presence. Why is he saying this now? And why is he saying that our U.S. troops cannot have a relaxed time? They cannot go there and have it easy. He himself calls for them to be put through the ringer. Who the hell is he to say this?
Also, his wife just took a nice cushy ski vacation about a week ago, caught on camera, going and enjoying, a beautiful ski vacation, mountain villa and everything, caught at a private airport, taking private flights. And so being funded by you, of course, that's what's happening.
Can relax. She can have a relaxing time.
She could also take some of that money. She was also seen, in France, like on a spending spree in Paris, buying expensive clothes and bags and everything else. So this is not a surprising. Also, Ukraine's chief army psychologist was just arrested last night on charges of stealing $1 million in your taxpayer dollars, both from the United States and the European Union, of course. $1 million stolen. He bought apartment buildings. He had 3 apartment buildings. He bought additional land. He bought BMWs, and he was found with $150,000 in his house in piles of cash. Take a look at this. Yeah, this is it. There he is. chief army psychiatrist. $150,000 in piles of cash.
US dollars he had. You guys, where do you think he got those?
Yeah.
Just to
Well,
go
I'm looking
buy
at the picture.
money
I
laundering.
think I recognize some of those are my tax dollars. I recognize some of those bills. I've seen them.
You recognize the serial
And
numbers?
this is why his whole family got those goddamn parties too. Because this Ukraine money laundering scheme that's finna fall apart. And all of the information. I told you, now they want to arrest this dude. That's what you been doing. He been stealing the whole time. All of the generals, everybody. Anybody who can get some cash been taking our tax dollars over there.
Yeah. It must be nice. It must be nice for all of those corrupt politicians over there to be living off the backs of American, and they get $700 in North Carolina after their
I believe
homes are
he
destroyed.
had, what is the number here? 3 BMWs. Oh, it says several BMWs. Now,
He had 3 apartment buildings.
right during previous regimes, previous administrations in Ukraine, it was reported that a government salary cannot even buy 1 BMW. So they had wondered. It's been obviously the most corrupt country in Europe for decades now. So anyone who had a BMW, you would wonder on a government salary where that came from if they did not come from legacy wealth.
Someone in the chat just says, average gaming says, you all think Putin is scared of Trump? I don't think he's scared of Trump. I think he respects Trump, and I think Trump respects Putin, and I think Trump hates Zelensky, and I know that JD Vance hates Zelensky. So I think what's being played right now is very interesting. And look, like this idea that you're going to sanction Putin even more than he's already been sanctioned, like, okay, I don't think he's really scared about that. But this is Putin's way of, Putin has wanted to come to the peace table multiple times and has asked for it. And the Biden administration never went along with it, totally ignored it, and in fact scuttled the peace agreement. So I don't know that I don't think he's scared of Trump at all, but he certainly respects him from a negotiating standpoint.
And I think the wording of this post on Truth Social gives them both enough leeway to come to the table with their full pride intact, which is important when it comes to, because they are leaders. And so because Vladimir Putin enjoys such massive support in Russia, he can't just grovel to the United States and not lose politically. And the same goes for Donald Trump. He cannot, they both have, optics matter in this. So that's the end of the point.
That's right.
That's
all right. Let's talk about this. Do you ever have a feeling you're being surveilled and hesitate to share things of interest via text message or email with your friends and loved ones? Well, recently, outspoken parents at a PTA meeting and Catholic Americans have been labeled as domestic terrorists by the FBI. These types of labels can be used to allow the U.S. government to surveil its own citizens and others who live abroad.
And this was a deal he made
yesterday, thanks to President Trump.
Yes, they did. In fact, libertarians and Republicans alike, like Congressman Thomas Massie and the Libertarian Party, have been pushing President Trump to pardon Silk Road founder Ross Ulbricht, and it happened. Now, President Trump is making good on his pardon to pardon Ross Ulbricht, and this was a deal he made during the campaign with libertarian supporters. He had to keep this promise. It still very much surprises me to see a politician keep their promises, though. This picture here, I've stared at it at length. It's a lot to me. It feels like the Julian Assange release, where I'm like, I need to see him hug his mom. I need to see him eat a burrito. I need to see him order something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
When we're watching these human interest stories, he's 40 years old now. He went to prison just a little after his 30th birthday. He's a man. He went in there almost a boy. Here is the Trump pardon. Oh, I don't believe we have a screen, so I'll read it to you. It said that he just called his mother to let her know that he pardoned her son, which because on behalf of the libertarian movement, which supported me so strongly, and it was his pleasure to do so. He says the scum that worked to convict him were some of the same lunatics who were involved in the modern day weaponization of government against me. He was given 2 life sentences plus 40 years, which was ridiculous. Now, he was arrested at a San Francisco library in 2013 by an FBI sting, where 2 agents started a fight behind him to distract him. And then they grabbed his laptop in front of him. Had he closed the laptop, his information would have been would have been what's the word I'm looking for?
Blocked. I mean, you would have needed like a password in
It
that
would have
moment to get
been
in.
encrypted. I'm sorry, is the word
Yeah.
that I'm looking for. So what they wanted was information about Silk Road, which was a Bitcoin marketplace where some, but not all, people sold contraband. Federal prosecutors also accused him of plotting a murder, but the victim himself has said he didn't think that it was Ulbricht who did that. The government's case was, let's just say, not rock solid, but here is CNN saying he's a very dangerous person that Trump just pardoned.
He also, a short time ago, announced a pardon for Ross William Ulbricht, who is this guy. He had this drug marketplace, Silk Road. The president, explaining the pardon, said, quote, "The scum that worked to convict him were some of the same lunatics who were involved in the modern-day weaponization of government against me." You're a former federal prosecutor. What do you think a DOJ remade in the image that Trump would like it to be looks like?
Well, my former office, the Southern District of New York, is the one that tried and convicted Ross Ulbricht, the scum, quote unquote, that he's referring to there, just so people understand who this guy is.
Right. By the way, the scum is not the man convicted of
no,
this. It's
right. Trump is referring to the SDNY prosecutors as the scum. Let me tell you who the other guy is, Ross Ulbricht. He ran a website called Silk Road. If you've ever been, well, everyone's been on Amazon. The way you would go on Amazon and order soap or a book, people go on Silk Road and order hundreds of millions of dollars of drugs, of hacking activities. Also, it was a marketplace for crime. And he was tried to a jury. He was convicted on all counts. The judge sentenced him to life. And now he is out for this purely, almost overtly political rationale by Donald Trump. I think it completely undermines what DOJ is all about. And he's letting go a very dangerous individual.
He's also fulfilling a campaign promise. He went to the Libertarian Party convention. They are for drug legalization. They wanted him released. And so he's following through.
Okay, why? That's not true. By that definition, according to CNN's definition of contraband being bought and sold by some type of marketplace, well, then every checking account provider is dangerous because Hunter Biden paid for sex with checks, right? It doesn't check out, really, pun intended. The reason libertarians believe in the Silk Road is because they think if you buy something with Bitcoin and make that transaction more secure, people are going to do what they're going to do, but we make it safer so that you don't actually get your goods until it's paid for with Bitcoin. So there's less cartel violence, there's less power in the hands of the cartel. He was facilitating a safer marketplace. And he was a student of Austrian economics. He just, so that's why libertarians really rally around Silk Road and his case. And most of them believe that he was prosecuted by the Obama Justice Department to be used as an example because the Bitcoin marketplace was something the US government could not control or track or tax. And it was taking power out of the hands of the government. Ulbricht's lawyers said that he tried to make a plea deal, but the government denies that he ever made such offerings. He was sentenced again to 2 life sentences plus 40 years without the possibility of parole, which convicted murderers and rapists where there's actual proof of a murder and a rape get smaller sentences than that. So the question is, what is to become of him now that he's 40 years old and been in prison for a decade? While he's in prison, he earned himself a bachelor's in computer science in the Prison University Project. He has been in contact a lot with Rand Paul and Thomas Massie. Here is Thomas Massie reading a letter that he received from Ulbricht, where he says that when he gets out, he will work to further the cause of freedom. Listen.
To a letter that Ross wrote me on December 14th of this year. And his mom, Lynn, gave this to me. And I hope he doesn't mind me sharing this because it's personal, but it brought a tear to my eye. Mr. Massie, Inauguration Day fast approaches, and my hopes are running high that our new president will quickly put an end to my incarceration once he is sworn in. As I await the beginning of my new life in freedom, I just want to acknowledge you and thank you for your part in bringing about this wonderful outcome. You have consistently been a powerful voice in the public sphere, supporting my campaign for freedom. So my imminent release is as much a victory for you as it is for me and my family. Thank you for every single time you supported me, both publicly and in private. You put your faith and confidence in me. And now that I'm getting my second chance, I promise to make you proud that you did. I would love to connect with you once I am on the other side of these walls to see how I can help further the cause of freedom. So he's already thinking about what he can do. I know Josie's crying. I cried when I read this. I've read it twice, practiced it without. This is the first time I've been able to read it without crying. Because this is, like you were saying, Tim, this is a personal example of how an election matters, down to somebody who was going to rot in prison, was rotting in prison. And by the way, Ross, he didn't even, he was willing to settle for less than what Trump gave him. He was willing to settle to have a sentence commuted, which means you're basically guilty, an admission of guilt, but your sentence is over. You've served enough time. And it was a ridiculous over sentencing, regardless of the guilt or not. I think it's a violation of the Eighth Amendment. The Eighth Amendment to our Constitution says no cruel or unusual punishment. Why should you get 2 life sentences plus 40 years?
Well, explain what he's accused. What was he accused of doing?
Running a website that allowed people to buy and sell drugs, for instance, using Bitcoin. I think they made an example out of him because they didn't want people using Bitcoin. And now it's far more mainstream, but I think that's one of the reasons they did it.
But I think we should clarify. I guess the website allowed people to buy and trade. What people did with it after the fact was what the people did with it.
Well, MasterCard lets you pay for prostitutes, right?
Yeah. So again, it's the same point. Hunter Biden used checkbook to buy sex.
Right.
And so then should every checking account provider get these unusual sentences? Clearly, he was made an example of. I very much want to see more of him when he is good and ready. He doesn't owe it to us to let him see us safe, but I feel like I need that.
10 years and 10 years. I mean, it's unbelievable.
My takeaway is I'm not using my financial tools to their full extent, I guess, because that's not what I use checks or my credit card for.
Don't you?
No.
It's none of my business.
It's America. I saw someone in the chat just a few minutes ago talking about drugs. It's like, if the earth made it, then it's free. Like, if the earth made it, then we have a right to it. And so to put a guy away think about the murderers that get off scot-free. Think about the illegal immigrants that don't even get held. He gets 2 life sentences plus 40 years.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. So yeah, we'll continue to watch that story.
This. The man.
And by the way, I sent a message to Congressman Massey today and I said, thanks for your work on this.
Yeah.
So, he was really behind the scenes working on this for years.
Yeah.
So today's show is brought to you by Native Path Collagen. Now, finding an honest doctor that isn't following in the footsteps of Big Pharma can feel impossible. That's why millions of men and women have turned to one Texas doctor. Why the hell is he sitting down with President Trump for 3 hours? Order comes with a 365-day money-back guarantee, so there's no risk to try it today. And Redacted listeners can visit right now, getnativepathcollagen.com/redacted to get up to 45% off while supplies last. Well, President Trump has some explaining to do. Why the hell is he getting cozy with Bill Gates? And why the hell is he backing an mRNA vaccine and surveillance project at the White House? A lot to unpack here. So first, on the Bill Gates piece of the story, Gates, easily one of the most evil men on the face of the planet, recently traveled to Mar-a-Lago and had a meeting with Donald Trump. They had a 3-hour dinner, according to Gates, where he says they discussed, quote, global health. Remember, Gates isn't a doctor. He steals software from people and puts his name on it. He was caught having dinners with Jeffrey Epstein. He's not a doctor. Why the hell is he sitting down with President Trump for 3 hours? He makes billions of dollars off of these vaccines pushed on populations around the world, specifically in Africa.
Wait. This dinner happened since the inauguration? This 3-hour dinner?
It happened right before the inauguration.
Yeah. Okay. All right. This is, for whatever reason, an important distinction to me.
Yeah. So remember, Gates isn't a doctor. He makes billions of dollars off of these vaccines pushed on these populations around the world, specifically in Africa, low-income areas, unwitting populations that don't have access to the internet and social media where they can jump on and say, hey, my mom died of this thing that Bill Gates was handing around in our village here.
You're fine.
Then suddenly Trump, after this meeting, Trump suddenly pulls out of the World Health Organization, which I'm all for it, which is the same thing, though, that he did back in 2020. Back then, though, Trump then turned around and gave billions of dollars to Gates through his Gavi Foundation, GAVI, which is Gates Vaccine Alliance, which pushes vaccines in low-income countries, again, all over the continent of Africa. So then today we learned that 2 of RFK Jr.'s picks to head up his vaccine safety board were kicked out. Who kicked them out? RFK Jr. had picked 2 individuals to be a part of his vaccine safety board under the Department of Health and Human Services, which he will invariably head up, it seems. But now they're kicked out. So RFK Jr. chose Stephanie Spear and Aaron Siri to sit on Kennedy's vaccine safety board. They are renowned for their unwavering commitment to revealing the truth about vaccine side effects, particularly the childhood vaccine schedule. So after this meeting with Gates, suddenly the Trump transition team has sidelined these 2 key figures, which focuses on spreading vaccine truth and transparency. Well, according to reports overnight, they were reportedly stripped of their advisory roles because of their positions on vaccine safety. Okay, I have a lot of questions here. This comes right after Bill Gates met with Trump. We need answers on this. What did Gates promise Trump, if anything? Why do these people get pushed off the board of advisories? RFK chose these people. Why did Trump or his team remove them after meeting with Gates? To me, the removal of Stephanie Spear and Aaron Siri represents a big setback on vaccine safety policy. Again, just so you understand, they collaborated closely with Robert Kennedy, specifically on child vaccine schedule. And that's one of the big things that RFK Jr. has been talking about extensively, is this vaccine schedule that, like, when he was a child, there was like 2 or 3 vaccines. Now we've got 30, 40 of them on this childhood vaccine schedule. And of course, the adverse effects of certain vaccines and COVID vaccines and all of this. So he was working with these individuals. Why did they get yanked off these advisory board role? I don't know.
Right. And think of how many people voted for Trump because of the alignment with RFK Jr. You cannot betray the power that was promised to this person at this point. It would be huge in the very first week. People are wondering, where is he? We didn't see images of him at the Maha Ball post inauguration.
Well, he was at the inauguration. He sat right behind Trump.
Right.
He was sat right behind Lauren Sanchez's boobs and Zuckerberg.
Did he? You know exactly.
I knew exactly where the open boobs were.
That's your beacon point for who sat where.
It's like a beacon of hope in the world.
Okay.
Like a lighthouse in the fog, if you will. And you're right. So Rain Hazelton here in our chat says RFK is the only reason I voted for Trump. Christine Miller says I love RFK. And exactly. And of course, and someone says, just ask Whitney. Well, exactly. I mean, Whitney Webb has been all over this. And she's going to join us next week on the show. She messaged me today. She's publishing a big piece that's not out yet. So we're going to have her on the show next week.
I mean, one of the things he said was that on January 20th, 2025, which was 2 days ago, that the United States government would make an advisory notice that fluoride should not be put in any municipal water. That's 48 hours late. I'm waiting for that. So, these are some things that we're just worried. Has his influence and promise slipped at this point?
And well, maybe RFK is just sitting back. Hey, it's President Trump's moment. Like, I don't need to get out and, because none of these people are really, other than Tom Homan, really going out on television and making speeches right now.
It's not President Trump's moment. It's our moment for the things that we voted for. And we have,
I get it. But if you are a part of an administration, and by the way, he hasn't even been confirmed yet as head of HHS. So he's still awaiting. We know internally there's been a moratorium on interviews. So you're not going to see Pam Bondi doing interviews. You're not seeing these other cabinet picks doing any kind of interviews right now. They've basically said no interviews until they're basically confirmed by the Senate. So they've been on lockdown. border czar Tom Homan doesn't need a Senate confirmation, and he's been out all over television, of course, going on the border policies they've unfolded over the last 48 hours. But yeah, RFK Jr. has been quiet. He was at the inauguration, but I want answers. And if we have a chance to sit down with RFK Jr. after he's confirmed, I would love to know why these people were kicked off the advisory board. Will he tell us the truth about it? Anyway, that's one piece of this story, but we're not done. Yesterday, something very strange happened. President Trump invited OpenAI CEO Sam Altman, Oracle Chairman Larry Ellison, SoftBank CEO Masayoshi Son to the White House to push the benefits of mRNA vaccines that use AI to detect cancers. Basically rolling out Operation Warp Speed 2.0, if you will. They didn't call it that. They called it the Stargate project, where Trump says they'll pool together. These companies are going to pool together between $100 billion and $500 billion. And of course, they'll get the blessing of the government. No word on how much government money would be involved in this. And it'll start with a massive data center in Texas, of course, where they'll sort of catalog and I guess surveil all of our gene sequences using AI somehow, the sort of big data center in Texas. So every American gets scanned, into Larry Ellison from Oracle, his database, and it'll all live in Texas and everything will be cataloged, and they'll develop mRNA vaccines specifically for you, John, and you, Nancy. We'll know exactly how to go after it. We'll construct an mRNA vaccine that will attack and go after you and protect you. A lot of Trump supporters, of course, despised Operation Warp Speed, which pushed COVID vaccines on Americans.
That's disgusting.
So this is not something many of us like at all. Remember, Larry Ellison has ties to the CIA. In fact, Oracle wouldn't exist without the CIA in the 1970s. Their first client was the CIA. There's a lot of that going around. Google wouldn't exist. CIA helped a lot of these people get off the ground. And it was called Project Oracle at the time, build a CIA database. So they're very, very cushy. So now he's going to cure your cancer? An mRNA, just so you understand, an mRNA vaccine uses a molecule called a messenger RNA to instruct cells in the body to produce a protein. The response then helps the immune system recognize the protein as a foreign body, starts to then produce antibodies to attack it. At least that's the promise of it, right? But add in the idea that every American would then be AI scanned, artificially intelligence scanned, so that people like Sam Altman at OpenAI have our entire genetic sequence. And then you add in all of these other pieces from these tech CEOs, and then this shit is pretty scary. Listen to Oracle's Larry Ellison explain some of this.
Once we gene sequence that cancer tumor, you can then vaccinate the person, design a vaccine for every individual person to vaccinate them against that cancer. And you can make that vaccine, that mRNA vaccine, you can make that robotically, again, using AI in about 48 hours. So imagine early cancer detection, the development of a cancer vaccine for your particular cancer aimed at you, and have that vaccine available in 48 hours. This is the promise of AI and the promise of the future.
You can promise that to yourself.
Right. You can take that and shove it. So personalized mRNA. Yeah, where everyone is scanned and tech companies control everything we do. No thanks. Go ahead, Philip.
Well, I'm just confused by the name Stargate project. Like, that's such a bizarre name for what is essentially like a genetic project. Like the Stargate thing just seems weird to me. Like I'm like hung up on that. Like, why Stargate?
Well, it encompasses other things. So if you go to the OpenAI site where they say announcing Stargate, it's not only for health and genes. It talks about a collaborative computing system between NVIDIA, the chip maker, and Oracle and OpenAI. It also has a partnership with Microsoft.
So Bill Gates involved.
Right. And so they're actually talking about how they can use it for all of humanity. It's not just for health. This is just one application, one dystopic application.
Well, and think about, like, there's already a bunch of natural solutions out there for cancer. Now, if they're going to put this out with like an emergency use or something, they're going to now be able to block and downplay all the natural things that are out there that can help, so it's just
Right.
another.
Well, and
there
someone
are
in our
certain
chat says the
cancers
body does this naturally.
Right, that's a good point. There are certain cancers that you will get. For instance, don't most men get prostate cancer? Something like 90% of them will get if they live to a certain age. I believe that's the data, and they don't die from it. It's just something that most men eventually develop for whatever reason. And so you could be taking something that to combat something that would not otherwise kill you. And so why would you do that? Now, here is my biggest fear about this technology existing. What if this blood test becomes mandated by your insurance company, or else they will deny you coverage? And what if then your insurance could cancel you if you refused said vaccine because they see it now? They see this potential. You won't take the vaccine. Then they think you're going to get cancer, and they say, well, we can't pay for the eventuality. So
That's
you
a
have
scary thought.
no choice
like
but to
Gattaca.
do it.
I mean, it's basically
Yes.
This is basically the
Yeah,
plot
that's
of
exactly
Gattaca.
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ooh, I'm putting that on our list of movies to show our
That's a
kids.
great movie. So many people on our chat said this is Gattaca, so you're not alone in that. So anyway, Robert Malone, you know Robert Malone. David, you give a background of Dr. Robert Malone. Didn't he actually create the technology behind mRNA, if I'm not mistaken? Anyway, yeah. So here's Dr. Robert Malone. Here's what he had to say about it. He said, these people have no idea how complicated the immune system is, and they have no understanding of the difficulties facing predictive computational immunology, and they have no understanding of cancer immunology. This is marketing, propaganda, and hype. So it really was a propaganda press conference. Trump and MAGA supporters are not happy about this, as you can imagine. Here's a Trump supporter, Sovereign Bra, says Donald Trump will lose his base if he supports more mRNA vaccines. Mark my words. Here's Justin Amash, libertarian, who was in Congress. He said this: the Stargate project sounds like the stuff of dystopian nightmares. A U.S. government announced partnership of mega corporations to protect the national security of America and its allies and harness AGI for the benefit of all humanity. Let's maybe take a beat here, he says. And then health expert and whistleblower Callie Means said this about it. Callie Means, he's talking about the natural side of this. He said a couple of thoughts on Ellison's comments here. Rates of cancer and nearly every other chronic disease are going up among children because we are poisoning them, not because we don't have enough drugs. So
he talks about President Trump's promise to end the chronic disease epidemic and keep our children safe. He talks about the only way to reverse this is not to seek it out after you get cancer, it's to stop poisoning each other, ourselves, so that we stop getting cancer. I mean, really, prevention is the only way to go about this, not go in and send, again, the way I see it is like inner space is send these little AI bots into our bloodstream. No, thank you.
Now, you'll remember Larry Ellison is the one who said that citizens, he's been pushing for a digital ID for years, Larry Ellison has, so that we would all be tracked and monitored using a digital ID. So he loves surveillance. And he loves this idea of AI, I think, as like a Trojan horse to lead us into a surveillance state. So remember, he was the one who said that citizens will be on their best behavior. Those are his words. When we have an AI surveillance system deployed across the United States to watch everything you do. Watch.
The police will be on their best behavior because we're constantly recording, watching and recording everything that's going on. Citizens will be on their best behavior because we're constantly recording and reporting everything that's going on. And it's unimpeachable. The cars have cameras on them. I think we have a squad car here someplace. But those kind of applications using AI, if we can use AI, and we're using AI to monitor the video. So if that altercation that occurred in Memphis, the chief of police would be immediately notified. It's not people that are looking at those cameras. It's AI that's looking at the camera. No. You can't do this. It would be like a shooting. That's going to be immediately, that's going to be an event that's immediately, an alarm is going to go off. It's going to be, and we're going to have supervision. In other words, every police officer is going to be supervised at all times. And the supervision will, and if there's a problem, AI will report the problem and report it to the appropriate.
We want every
person,
CEO
whether it's the
supervised like
sheriff
you.
or the chief or whomever, We need to take control of the situation. We have, same thing. We have drones. We just, if there's something going on in a shopping center, and I'll stop. A drone goes out there, get there way faster than a police car. There's no reason for, by the way, high-speed chases. You shouldn't have high-speed chases between cars. You just have a drone follow the car. I mean, it's very, very simple. And the new generation of autonomous drones.
Yeah. So
I'll stop, he says, because I probably have gone too far down the plot of 1984.
Citizens will be on their best behavior with AI surveillance deployed across the United States.
If you look at the WEF, where they were talking about AI in an office being able to predict like worker behavior and potential problems, like if you mix those two things together, we are now looking at pre-crime. We're looking at AI, looking at somebody's behavior, predicting that they're probably a criminal, and then alerting the authorities.
Right. And then this goes on some sort of permanent record of some individual, and if they try to apply for a job or go to college or some other issue down the line, some of this is probably in some sort of a database somewhere that's keeping them from, sort of a social credit score. I mean, this is the great fear, right? That you won't be able to get insurance, you won't be able to get a mortgage on a home, because you have
they
all
can
of
program AI to do anything. They done already seen racist. They program these things. They got us fucked up. We know who these AI, who they gonna be harassing. Same old racist play. They gonna
these like AI blemishes on your record. Like, this is where we're heading. And this is the big concern, of course, at the border too, like biometric scanning for people coming in and out of the United States and all of this stuff. So I think we need to be very, very weary of this stuff. And when we see these press conferences, like, who the heck, we need to say no to this. And we need to tell President Trump, like, absolutely not.
I have not seen one person online saying, I love it, sign me up. But that's not what the algorithm shows me. So if you see anything like that, please tag me in it. I want to see.
No, and this is where you hold these leaders to account. I mean, President Trump is not Jesus. I know that there are some people that think he is. He's a human being. And so
these people plan on killing us. Because they already say we some useless eaters, and there's way too many people on this planet. All these billions of people, they need about 500 million. Now, if they can work into where AI control everything, do all the work, you got to be out of your mind to think that these sick individuals is going to leave us on this planet. That's what people need to just wake up. You must be crazy to think that these people are going to leave us on this planet when they're thinking like whole states to themselves and their loved ones, whole territories. They just see, and they plan poisonous, kill us off. World War III, that a couple of nukes fly, that really can get it done. Blame Putin.
He's going to make huge mistakes. I think this is a massive mistake on day 2 of his administration, and I hope that this gets pulled back and the United States does not put any tax dollars behind this. And I want to know what the hell's going on with RFK Jr. and these cushy relationship with Bill Gates. We need answers on that. So we'll follow the story. We're not going away from that story. All right, folks, the tides are turning.
Let's keep making on. See, they can get World War III. They really can get their plans into place. A couple of nukes go off, then your ass got to take some nuke kills.
A series of missile strikes on the rear
radioactive prevention.
A drone production facility was
take these pills.
destroyed.
People be lined up.
A warehouse
nukes fly,
was destroyed.
Oh, people gonna be lined up to take the government shots so you can survive the radiation. This is sick. But Americans have been poisoned. We know what to do, but we waiting. The people wait. Everybody waiting. I'm waiting. See how they don't. We put poison in our water. We not reacting properly. Like a person, you see the killer. He killing everybody in the house. You just waiting on your turn to die.
Destroyed in the Sumy region. A military airfield in Starokostiantinov was hit in the Khmelnytsky region. Explosions thundered in the Zhytomyr and Cherkasy regions. There, the Russians struck railway junctions. And these are footages from Odessa. First, a strong explosion is visible, then a glow. In neighboring Nikolaev, a military training ground was destroyed. In the Kharkov region, Russian troops liberated the settlement of Zapadnaya. In the DPR, the settlement of Baranovka came under the control of Russian troops. It is located directly in the direction of the Pokrovsk-Konstantinovka highway. This is the last major artery through which the Ukrainian garrison in the city is supplied. On the same road, drone operators today shot down an American Bradley infantry fighting vehicle and several combat armored vehicles. The enemy is also unable to hide from Russian artillerymen on the Zaporizhia front. A group of enemy infantry tried to hide in an abandoned house. However, they were covered by precise strikes from howitzer crews of the Dnieper group of troops. The Russian army continues to close the pincers around Pokrovsk. The day before the liberation of Volkov, the village of Shevchenko was liberated. It is reported that we managed to drive the enemy out of the village of Zeleno. Fighting is underway near Kitlino and Zverivo. Trump has officially moved the deadline for the end of the Ukrainian war. Alas, the Wall Street Journal writes that Trump's new goal is to end the war in 100 days, by May 2nd of this year. That is, the election promise to stop the war in 24 hours has already been forgotten on the second day of Donald Trump's presidency. At the same time, Trump is also taking off his peacemaker mantle. The U.S. president called the introduction of new sanctions against Russia likely if the Kremlin does not negotiate on Ukraine. Trump again said that contacts with Putin would take place in the near future, adding for the first time that he was ready to meet any time the Russian president wants. Trump himself called Putin smart. As for further arms supplies to Kiev, Donald said that this issue is under consideration. That is, this is classic Trump, continuous contradictions. Trump knows Russia's position. Today Lavrov voiced it again just in case. The ultimate goal is not to freeze the conflict, but to establish a lasting peace with the mandatory fulfillment of all Moscow's demands. Naturally, no threats, sanctions, or new weapons for Zelensky will change this position. Are you ready to meet with Putin? I am ready anytime they want. I would like to finish this. You talked about a ceasefire in Ukraine. What will happen if Vladimir Putin does not sit down at the negotiating table? Will you impose additional sanctions against Russia? It is very likely. Do you think the war should stop along the current front lines? This war should never have happened. If you had a competent president, the war would never have happened. There would definitely not have been a conflict in Ukraine. You mentioned President Zelensky. When and where is the meeting with him planned? I don't know. Zelensky wants peace. He told me that he wants it very much. But it takes two to tango. We'll see. By the way, the conflict in Ukraine would never have happened. Never. Russia would never have entered Ukraine. I had a very good understanding with Putin about that. It would definitely never have happened. He didn't respect Biden. It's very simple. Putin is smart. Are you planning further arms deliveries to Ukraine? Will they be given any help?
Respect Trump.
We are looking into it. We will talk to Zelensky, and soon we will talk to President Putin, and we will see what happens. Here's what I think. The European Union should pay more than they are paying now.
Shakedown.
Because under Biden, we spent $200 billion more than others. They will be affected more than us, and they know it. There is an ocean between us. We should equalize our spending. We would have $200 billion more. Was it stupid of us? Answer, yes. In your conversation with President Xi Jinping, Ukraine was mentioned. Did you ask him to take part in resolving this issue? Yes. I said we should finish it. Of course, he has not done much in this issue, but he is very strong. We are also strong. I said we should resolve the conflict, so yes, we discussed it. A Colombian citizen who fought on the side of Ukraine in the Kursk region of Russia was taken into custody today. Pablo Puentiso Borges is accused of terrorism and mercenarism. The Russian Investigative Committee reported. Pablo himself claims that this is a misunderstanding. He is 32 years old. He allegedly crossed the Russian state border quite recently in December 2024. From Colombia, Pablo went to Europe to earn money. He tried to find work in Poland. Then he went to Ukraine allegedly as a military medic following an ad. In his homeland, the Colombian served in the regular army and had the necessary skills. But instead of a hospital, he and several other Latin Americans were sent first to the Sumy region, and from there, without explanation, he was thrown into the Kursk region of Russia. Now Pablo claims that he was not going to fight with Russia. During the first attack, he fled into the forest and remained there until Russian soldiers found him. The only thing Pablo cannot explain is why a medic allegedly needed grenades and a loaded rifle, with which he was captured. A film crew from the German publication Welt arrived in the Sumy region, right on the border with Russia. They visited a firing point from which Kiev militants are shelling peaceful Russian cities and towns. The Ukrainians told the Germans that they fear a major Russian breakthrough. Small reconnaissance groups of the Russian army are already regularly entering the territory of the Ukrainian army. They mine positions and identify gaps in the defense. Today it became known that Zelensky has not signed the bill adopted by the Verkhovna Rada, which prohibits the mobilization of 18-year-old boys for the fourth month. That is, Zelensky is ready to mobilize the youth, but he is simply bargaining with the West. First, he needs missiles and tanks, and only then fresh blood. At the same time, the capture of Ukrainians over 18 does not stop for a minute. Propagandist Portnikov said that if you pity people, you will not be able to win the war. Portnikov himself, by the way, an open Russophobe, is naturally not in the trenches. More cannibalistic footage of military registration and enlistment office employees came from the city of Kiev. In just 30 seconds, Ukrainian military commissars caught 2 new soldiers at once. These men were walking down the street, and they even tried to show some documents, but no one wanted to look at the documents. This footage shows a real chase of military commissars after a car on the Odessa-Kiev highway. They eventually managed to stop the car, beat the men, and sent them off to war. Europe is divided. Finnish President Alexander Stubb believes that Trump will be able to negotiate with Putin and conclude a deal in the next 3 months. The British do not believe in Trump. The Times writes that after the guns fall silent in Ukraine, Russia will begin to prepare for war with NATO. Borrell's replacement, Estonian Kaja Kallas, shouts that she already has top-secret intelligence data about a Russian attack on EU countries in 2028. In order for the EU and NATO to be well prepared for this attack, Ukraine must continue to fight Russia, European Commissioner for Defense Kubilius said today. In other words, he proposes to prolong the conflict. He says that every day that Ukraine is still alive is the day when Europe becomes stronger. Macron and Scholz are nervous. The German chancellor urgently arrived at the Élysée Palace from Davos. Scholz, clenching his fists at the entrance, said that Trump is a challenge for Europe. Macron supported Olaf and promised not to abandon Zelensky. French Defense Minister Luc Cornu said that Trump's threats to leave NATO alone with Putin, quote, have become a serious kick in the pants for all European capitals. And Zelensky is not letting up. In Davos, the Kiev clown said that Ukraine is the last frontier between civilized Europe and wild Russia. Therefore, the best thing Europe can do now is to start preparing 200,000 soldiers to enter Ukraine. According to him, this will be the best guarantee of peace after a deal is reached between Putin and Trump. Zelensky did not specify where the Europeans will get so many peacekeepers. He himself looks unstable. After thinking for half a day, he decided that the Europeans would not be enough for him. And just now in an interview with Bloomberg, he addressed the United States with a demand to introduce American soldiers into Ukrainian territory so that the Europeans would not be afraid alone. Zelensky himself gave Trump advice: expand America not at the expense of Greenland, but at the expense of Russia. He is crazy.
Napolitano here for Judging Freedom. Today is Wednesday, January 22nd, 2025. My dear friend Scott Ritter joins us now. Scott, I want to spend some time exploring your thoughts and observations about Ukraine in the era of President Trump. But before we do, I have to ask you questions about Israel. Is this a ceasefire or just a inauguration pause?
Well, I think it's a ceasefire. At least I believe Trump wants it to be a ceasefire. What it turns out to be, we don't know. But Israel, this isn't a gimmick by Israel. Israel was compelled to do this against its will. The Israeli government has paid a heavy price. The coalition that Netanyahu, the governing coalition, is collapsing. Ben Gvir, the extremist minister, has resigned, taken his party away. Not only that, but by the last thing Netanyahu wanted was to bring these hostages home under these terms, because he is under judicial attack right now. Attack is, rightfully so. The Israeli courts are coming after him for breaking the law, for lying to the Israeli people, for misusing classified information to deceive the Israeli public about the hostages. The fact is, every hostage that died in Gaza was killed because Israel wouldn't allow them to come home. Israel could have taken this deal that it has here at any time, but it didn't. And that's not because of Hamas, it's because of Netanyahu. And so if this was a gimmick, Netanyahu is paying a huge price for this. Now, he apparently has been given a green light to clean up the West Bank. And so some people say, well, he's trading the ceasefire in Gaza for, moving forward in the West Bank. But, that may come back to bite him as well. But I think the Trump administration is serious about bringing it into this fight, because look at what's happened. Trump now doesn't have to worry about going to war against Yemen, because the Yemeni linked the ceasefire to their cessation of ballistic missile attacks and against Israel and attacks on Israeli shipping. So that comes to an end. There's no reason for Hezbollah now to continue the fight in defense of Hamas because there's a ceasefire. Iran likewise is disengaged. This creates opportunities for peace, and that's the strategic goal and objective of Trump. Now, how Israel spins this is Israel's business, but I have a feeling that there's going to be continued pressure placed on Israel not to violate the ceasefire in Gaza.
Do you accept what our friend Phil Giraldi has written about? Chris Hedges has written about it as well, and that is the Stephen Witkoff articulated side deal, which is that if the IDF goes back into Gaza for any reason, even offensively, that is ostentatiously violating the ceasefire, the U.S. will back them. If Netanyahu wants to extend the settlers, you just alluded to this, by force in the West Bank, the U.S. will back them. And this horrific NSO Pegasus thing, the zero-click software, which Joe Biden stopped from being introduced into the United States and forced the FBI to mothball, would have the sanctions lifted on it, and the Israelis can sell it here. This is the most pernicious software out there. You're probably familiar with the way it works. Do you accept that the existence of that side deal?
Netanyahu has alluded to the fact that he has transcripts of conversations that reflect the first two talking points. I'm not so confident as about the Pegasus software, because I can't imagine the national security establishment greenlighting Israel's ability to blanket collect on Americans. This is not we know that Israel spies on us on a regular basis. We know Trump administration knows that as well. And so to sit there and say, well, we know you're spying on us, so here, let's help you spy on us more efficiently. I have trouble with that. But the first two, I'll modify the first statement. It's not that Israel can go in any time. I believe that it is if Hamas violates the ceasefire and Israel is compelled to return to Gaza, that the United States will back Israel's decision to do that and whatever tactics Israel employs, that we won't tie their hands. But I don't think, because then if it is, Israel can do anything at once, then there's no reason to have a ceasefire. I do believe that the ceasefire is serious, and that if Hamas abides by its obligations, that the Trump administration will not greenlight an Israeli offensive back into Gaza.
Does the U.S. foreign policy establishment, do the Zionists in the U.S. foreign policy establishment, which is many of them, maybe most of them, understand that Netanyahu is not worthy of belief or trust?
First of all, let's start with the Zionist in chief, the president of the United States. He knows that. Why do you think he reposted Jeffrey Sachs' damning commentary on Netanyahu? He knows the truth about Netanyahu. I think that many of the pro-Israeli, pro-Zionist elements within the United States government, within the Trump administration, have a similar approach towards Benjamin Netanyahu. He is a liar, a cheat. He's not a friend of the United States. And when you're operating at that level, you do get access to the counterintelligence briefings about what Netanyahu does against the United States, ostensibly behind our backs. He's not a friend of America. And everybody in power knows that. But what they're doing is they're separating their disdain for Netanyahu, the man, with their support of Israel, the nation, and Zionism.
Has he overplayed his hand? Has he just sucked dry too much from the U.S.?
I think so. I think he's at the point right now where he's a useful tool, but he's no longer a friend and an ally.
Is Trump going to be under his sway the way Biden was?
No, look, Trump, like I said, he reposted Jeffrey Sachs' condemnation of Netanyahu. It's the other way around. Look, in the first term, Trump was very much under his sway. Netanyahu briefed Trump and sort of owned Trump, got inside Trump's head. But I think Trump, in the intervening time, learned a lot about Netanyahu and how he operates, and understands that Netanyahu is not his friend. And I think Trump today is viewing Netanyahu as a useful tool, but not a friend or an ally.
Here's an ally of Donald Trump who will be whispering in Trump's ear on an almost daily basis. And he wants Trump, you'll know who this is, to bomb Iran. Cut number 4.
This war will never end with Hamas in charge of Gaza, politically or militarily. Their days are numbered. And the next question for the world is, what do we do about the Iran nuclear program? That's where we're going to move to next. There's diplomacy. There's a 1 in a trillion chance you'll degrade the Iranian nuclear program through diplomacy. There's a 90% chance you'll degrade it through military action by Israel, supported by the United States. So the next topic I will be engaging in with President Trump is to take this moment in time to decimate the Iran nuclear program, because they're so exposed.
What does that mean?
Help Israel deliver a knockout blow.
What does that mean? You're going to urge him to have Israel bomb Iran's facilities that are underground and would require U.S. military support to actually be effective?
I'm going to urge the decimation of the Iranian nuclear program. I don't think diplomacy works. This is a religious Nazi regime. They want to destroy the Jewish state. They want to purify Islam and drive us out of the Mideast. It would be like negotiating with Hitler. I am hoping there will be an effort by Israel to decimate the Iran nuclear program, supported by the United States. And if we don't do that, it will be a historical mistake.
Man, he gets worse with the passage of time.
Yeah, I think he didn't read the memo. Trump is moving away from imperialistic.
Revolutionary salute to our brother Vincent Brown Scott for the donation to the war chest. Revolution is a way of life. Absolutely appreciate the love, family. Salute. Hitler is not the worst. I'm sick and tired of this. See, I got to go on my camp. Hitler is not the worst motherfucking person in the world. He's not even top 10, and he stopped saying that goddamn shit. That's a small head talking point. Hitler not the worst person in the world. He didn't own no motherfucking slaves. He wasn't raping slaves and killing them. I told you, George Washington is my Hitler, and he stopped doing this, bro. Stop bringing up Hitler when you're the Hitler regime. They ain't the Confederates. Say that. I bet they'll never say they the Confederates. The Confederates was owning people. You see how disgusting they are. Did the Nazis own people? Did the Nazis own? The Nazis had slaves. Yeah, they killed people. That's disgusting. So did the Confederates. I'm sick and tired of that shit. We're going to combat that too. That's going to be my life's journey to have people stop comparing all killers. You the next Hitler. Well, you the next George Washington. God damn it. You the next Thomas, what that clown? Jefferson, Davis. That's who your ass is. That's who you is. Them some scumbags. And you see the Republican Party. You got an awakening coming, Republican Party, because don't think I have been keeping my eyes on y'all motherfucking bullshit policies y'all trying to be passing since Trump got in office. Don't think cut figures sleep. Just because we wanted our children not to be transitioned by the Democratic Party and we don't want them illegals over here, don't fucking mean the South gonna rise again.
Wars of choice. This entire Trump ran on a platform that said we're going to get out of these war entanglements in the Middle East, that the policies of us going in and playing policemen are failed policies, and we don't want that. Lindsey Graham didn't get the memo, or if he did, he's just so hate-filled that he just refuses to go. There is not a snowball's chance in hell that Donald Trump's going to do anything that Lindsey Graham just said. Not a snowball's chance in hell. Everything's moving in the other direction.
Know that Bibi will try and drag Trump.
Not at all. It won't even start. The conversation won't even begin. Because first of all, Israel can't attack Iran without us. And we're just not going to play that game. And I'm pretty sure we're on record with Netanyahu that that's just not going to happen. Trump has said, go back in the campaign, that he wants to have negotiations with Iran about their nuclear program that lead to the lifting of sanctions and the normalization of relations. That's the president of the United States. That's the man who was just sworn in. You know who wasn't sworn in as the commander-in-chief of the United States of America? Lindsey Graham. Lindsey Graham is a hate-filled, I'm not going to say it, but you know what I mean. He is a horrible American, a horrible human being, and I don't know why the people of South Carolina keep voting him into office. But he's a pimple on the bottom of history right now. That's it. That's his only function. There's nothing about what he said in terms of Israeli policy that's going to come true. That's the exact opposite direction that President Trump wants to lead the United States.
Are Israel and Iran preparing for war against each other as we speak, Scotty?
No. The fact is, the head of the Iranian Revolutionary Command just came out and said that, for instance, Operation True Promise 3, the massive 1,000 missile attack, he said that's off table. We're not going to do that. We're not looking to have a war with Israel. That's not what we want to do. And right now, the Iranian president has the concurrence of the supreme leader, Ali Khamenei, to pursue diplomatic discussions with the United States with an eye of bringing this nuclear issue under control to the point where the United States can begin lifting economic sanctions. That's the strategic direction that Iran wants to go into, that the United States wants to go into. And frankly speaking, Israel at this point in time also wants to. And look, even the Israelis are saying, after the collapse of Israel, Project Iran, which was their giant project that Benjamin Netanyahu has been promoting since 1995, that's no longer important. Israel's now talking about Turkey and the threat, the long-term threat that a resurgence of Ottomanism and his resurgence of the Ottoman Empire in Turkey would represents. And that, I think, you're seeing a strategic shift in Israel as well. So Lindsey Graham, once again, is just out in left field, and I'm dismissive of
the television anchor that was questioning him. I'm afraid I don't know who she is. She had an implication in one of her questions. I wonder if it's correct. She implied that the Israelis would be unable to destroy the Iranian underground development of nuclear materials without U.S. aid. Is that true?
That is 100% correct.
Okay. Now to a cut on tape that I think you will have the opposite view of as we segue into Ukraine, Trump, and Putin. Chris, cut number 8.
We've heard his commitment to do everything to prevent World War III. Of course, we welcome this approach and we congratulate the newly elected President of the United States on his inauguration. We have never been against dialogue. We have always been ready to maintain peaceful relationship with any American administration. I have said that many times. We would like to see the dialogue built upon equality and mutual respect, considering the common positions on our country on a number of international issues, including strengthening security and political stability. We're also open for dialogue with the new US administration on the Ukrainian conflict. The most important thing here is to eliminate the fundamental reason for the conflict. That's the most important. And as for settling the situation itself, its goal should be not a brief ceasefire, not just getting some time to regroup and rearm and carry on the conflict, but long-term peace based on respect to lawful interests of all people and nationalities living in the region. And of course, we're going to fight for the interests of Russia and its people. This is actually the goal and point of the special military operation.
That is a serious diplomat, a serious leader, articulate, clear, crisp, open-minded.
No doubt about it. I mean, there's a reason why Vladimir Putin is the leader he is. There's a reason why Russia is where it is today. Is he perfect? No. Has Russia made mistakes? Of course. But the bottom line is Russia has never deviated from its strategic objectives, its stated strategic objectives when it comes to the special military operation. And those strategic objectives remain the same today. Ukraine will never be a member of NATO. And never means never. Not in 10 years, 20 years. So it means it will
That's
never.
the Kellogg. That's the General Kellogg nonsense. We'll delay their entry for 10 years. That's a non-starter, and the general must know that by now.
Everybody knows that by now, even Trump. But the general keeps repeating the propaganda. 2, there won't be a frozen conflict. If you saw, Putin was very diplomatic, and he said, we're not looking to have a ceasefire so people can rearm. Russia has, through, tremendous cost to itself, achieved the strategic initiative and dominance in this conflict, a war of attrition, where Russia has achieved the mathematical dominance over Ukraine. Russia has won the war of attrition. Ukraine today is collapsing on the front line, and Russia will continue to keep making the advances that it's making. There's nothing Ukraine can do to stop it. There's no amount of equipment or manpower that can be brought in to stabilize this situation. The attrition machine is so much in favor of Russia right now that it just grinds away at whatever the Ukrainians throw at it. Why would Russia stop the conflict and allow a reset? So everything Russia has sacrificed for over the course of the last 3 years will be thrown away. Russia's just not going to do that. There will be no ceasefire until the terms that are acceptable to Russia have been agreed to. Russia is not going to stop in a good faith measure and let Ukraine rebuild, let the West rearm, let NATO think that it can intervene. Right now, the entire West is off balance because of the victories being won by the Russian forces, by the supremacy of Russian defense industry, by the superiority of the Russian economy. And so Russia's not going to concede any of these advantages to allow the president of the United States to get a politicized talking point. If Trump is serious about peace, frankly speaking, he needs to fire Keith Kellogg, or at least silence him, and bring in better advisors. Hey, Trump, if you're listening, call me. Okay, I'm more than happy to talk to you about it.
God, I wish he would. I wish he would call you. The show was Face the Nation. The questioner was Margaret Brennan. She asked a great question. And that was Vladimir, for those listening on audio only, that of course was President Putin on the day of Trump's inauguration. Yesterday, Trump said the following about the war in Ukraine, cut number 13.
President Zelensky would like to have peace. He's told me that very strongly. He'd like to have peace, but it takes two to tango. We'll see what happens. Anytime they want, I'll meet. I'd like to see that end. Millions of people are being killed, and they're being killed. It's a vicious situation, and they're now largely soldiers. A lot of people have been killed in the cities. They look like demolition sites. The thing with Ukraine is that many more people died than you're reporting. You're not reporting the real numbers, and I'm not blaming you for that. I'm blaming maybe our government for not wanting to release those numbers. Many more people died than what you know about.
Do you know what he means when he says many more people died than what you know about?
He doesn't even know what he means, with all due respect to the president. He's repeating garbage numbers given to him by Keith Kellogg. Keith Kellogg, has said that 700,000 Ukrainians and over 1 million Russians have died.
Oh, there's no evidence for that. Not the 1 million Russians.
Look, the BBC and Medusa, who are not pro-Russia, pro-friendly, have done a deep dig into Russian obituaries. And what we can get from this data, which roughly correlates, is that around 90,000 Russian soldiers from the Ministry of Defense have been killed in the fighting since the special military operation began. Just to put this in perspective, the United States, lost 58,000 Americans in 10 years of fighting in Vietnam, and that's a national tragedy. So in 3 years, Russia's lost 90,000. Now, this doesn't include the casualties from the Donetsk Republic or the Lugansk Republic, from Wagner, or from non-Ministry of Defense sources. If you add up the total number of dead for the Russians, you're getting in the area of around 150,000, 160,000 dead. You can add on to that, say 3 times that number, you're probably looking at a number around 500,000 wounded. So a total of between 650, 700,000 casualties total for Russia. That's huge. It's a big deal, but it's not 1 million dead. The Ukrainians, on the other hand, we're talking about a minimum of 700,000 dead, possibly up to 1.1 million dead. And then you add on to that the wounded, and we're talking about multiple millions. That's the number that Trump might be saying we are being underreported.
Right,
but the fact of the matter is, it's Ukraine that suffered the casualty. There's a reason why Russia's winning the war of attrition, and it's because they're killing more Ukrainians.
Right. What is the status of the Ukrainian and NATO-backed incursion into Kursk?
Well, I mean, they put their best trained and best equipped troops into this effort, and they have dug in. And so the Russians are, doing what the Russians do, which is a slow attrition-based, approach towards eliminating Ukrainian positions. If you take a look at the rate of advance in Kursk, it matches the rate of advance in some of the most heavily defended sections of the Donetsk Republic, where the Russians are still advancing slowly, a kilometer here, a kilometer there, a kilometer here. That's what the Russians are doing in Kursk. Russia will liberate all of Kursk, but they're not going to sacrifice. You don't win a war of attrition by giving the enemy an opportunity to kill you. And so, the Russians will use their firepower superiority to grind down the enemy and slowly push them out of territories. And that's what's happening. The Russians are pushing the Ukrainians out, killing. Ukrainians just launched a counteroffensive timed with Trump's inauguration. Everything's political for them. The idea is they thought they're going to come in and give Russia a black eye. And the counteroffensive fizzled. Pretty much the entire counterattacking force was destroyed. Now the Russians are back to driving the Ukrainians back.
Do we know, Scott, if the United States Department of Defense is still operating under orders issued by Lloyd Austin and Joe Biden to deliver military equipment to Ukraine, or has that stopped since the inauguration?
There was a report that's gotten a lot of play that the Trump administration has frozen everything and relieved the entire team. I find that difficult to believe. First of all, many of the people implementing these policies are career military officers who are simply executing the orders. Why would you fire them? The second thing is that would be conceding everything to Trump. I mean, to Putin. Basically, if that's true, that means Trump has made a decision to freeze, to deny Ukraine critical assistance for a period of 30, 40, 90 days. That would be saying we want Russia to win. Here, Trump is trying to be the tough guy, saying, I mean, he issued another statement today. We can do it the hard way, he said. Well, you can't do it the hard way if you freeze supply and all that. So I think that report is inaccurate.
What do you think he'll do? I mean, Zelensky can't even run the government if we stop the spigot of cash. Am I right?
Yeah, no, Zelensky's in a panic. I don't know if you saw him in Davos. He's starting to lash out against the United. He sees the handwritings on the wall that it's game, set, match. It's over. He's already condemning the United States. He's already critical of Europe. It's not going to be a good time for Zelensky. I mean, it's never pretty when these failed adventures collapse. And Zelensky is the leader of an entity that we created for the purpose of bringing harm to Russia. And Russia has succeeded in 3 years in defeating that, turning the tables. And we're in the end game status of it. It's either going to be a negotiation where Trump concedes everything to Russia that Russia wants, or it's going to be the Russians rejecting any intervention by Trump and gaining what they want through military force. One can end the war shorter with fewer loss of lives. The other one will take longer, maybe even another year. But Russia is going to win no matter what. That's where we're at in the stage of things. There's nothing Donald Trump can do to reverse that. He doesn't have the defense industry to do it. He doesn't have the military to do it. He doesn't have the equipment to do it.
Here's President Zelensky yesterday at his inarticulate best, cut number 10.
But will President Trump listen to Europe? Or will he negotiate with Russia and China without Europe? Europe needs to learn how to fully take care of itself so that the world can't afford to ignore it. It's vital to maintain unity in Europe because the world doesn't care about just Budapest or Brussels. It cares about Europe as a whole.
You know what he's talking about?
No, he doesn't know what he's talking about. I mean, he's trying to create something that doesn't exist, which is an independent, decisive Europe that acts free of American influence or direction.
Does he think that Europe will come to his rescue once Trump turns off the spigot?
I don't know if he thinks that. He's hopeful. He's praying. He's trying to create the conditions for that. But I was listening to other statements he made. I think he fully understands what's about to happen. That's the total abandonment of Ukraine.
Will the U.S. have to replace him since Putin won't speak with him?
Yeah, I mean, this thing doesn't end with Zelensky in power. That's the sad reality. Russia will not compromise on that. Remember, Russia, and Putin has said this, and Trump has alluded to this as well. You don't want to create a cessation of hostilities that only retains the underlying problems that will only, if they're not resolved, will lead to the resumption of fighting 2, 3, 5 years from now. Marco Rubio, the new Secretary of State, said that as well. Zelensky is a problem that, if left in, will only lead to problems. Russia will not allow a Zelensky-like government to stay in power. Russia wants that government removed and replaced with a government that will do Russia's bidding, will change the constitution of Ukraine to denazify Ukraine, to get rid of the Banderas, etc. That's the reality, and this is a reality that Trump is going to have to accept.
Scotty, thank you very much, my dear friend. Your analysis on both
let's go to Al Sharpton. Now, the reason why I'm covering Al Sharpton is because Al Sharpton is one of the Seiko salesmen of the Democratic Party. And I think in order to bring down the Democratic Party, which is a mission of mine, I want everybody to know who watches my content. I don't have a lot of goals here, other than to tell you the truth. It's the raw truth Black America deserves. We deserve it. It's important. Because Al ain't gonna give it to you. MSNBC ain't gonna give it to you. Al has been lying and gaslighting Black Americans for so long. I gotta expose him. Now, on MLK Day, he gave this big speech. I'm not gonna spend that much time on it, but this clip is a little bit of him telling whoppers and misleading you. So let's play it.
And later, people around the world, if we discipline our dollars, we would make folk understand they have to respect us and regard us. Donald Trump just said in his inaugural address that he is going to end DEI this week. He's going to put out his executive orders. You have all these corporations that are saying they're going to back up off DEI. And why do we have DEI? We had DEI because you denied us diversity. You denied us equity. You denied us inclusion. DEI was a remedy to the racial institutional bigotry practiced in academia and in these corporations. Now you want to put us back in the back of the bus. We're going to do the Dr. King Rosa Parks on you. We're going to call you out one by one, and we're going to shut you down.
Okay. So what Reverend Al is talking about is a bunch of nonsense. Maybe once upon a time, before they actually implemented affirmative action, MLK was asking for this. He was championing diversity. But when he was talking about diversity, he was primarily talking about Black Americans. That's who MLK was primarily championing for. I think we can all agree. When he was doing the bus boycotts, it was about Black Americans, right? So on one hand, Reverend Al, he name drops MLK in the bus boycott. Then on the other hand, he's talking about DEI. And DEI is not Black people. DEI, once again, for anybody who doesn't know, DEI is diversity. And there are eight or nine different groups of categories of diversity. Black is but one of the 8 or 9 groups. So when you are championing for DEI, you're not championing for Black Americans. Anybody who's walking around talking about diversity is not just talking about Black people. He's talking about Black people and Latino Americans and Asian Americans and Jewish Americans and Hindu Americans and disabled Americans and veteran Americans and women and trans and like all those groups are what make up diversity. Do you understand? My beef with Sharpton is simple. Stop using Black people as weapons to try to get stuff for people that aren't Black people. Stop it. We end up with nothing and we get all the blame for these programs and we don't get the benefits of these programs. So let's stop the programs. Why should Black people be upset about programs that go away that didn't primarily benefit us anyway? I want to know. It's like these new kids, man. These new kids, disease or my 16-year-old son don't go outside that often. Every once in a while, it's like, Dad, can I go outside? Like, sure, man, go ahead. Where you going? Okay, fine, okay. But if I grounded him for a week, he'd be like, I wasn't going out anyway. I can still play the game. I can still, still be on my computer. Yeah, okay. That's how black people should be about DEI. You should be like my 16-year-old son is when I say I'm going to ground him and he can't go out. You should be like, oh, okay, fine. I was staying in anyway. Is the Wi-Fi working? We good. That's how we should be. Instead of being gaslit and emotional over what the hell Al Sharpton's talking about. But it's worse than that. DEI uses, in order to make it effective, because you can't make an argument for DEI using LGBTQ groups. You know why? Because LGBT groups include white people too. So it's really not a good argument because a lot of LGBT people have good money. They're not struggling. They're not hurt. They're not on the bottom of anything. Anybody could be LGBTQ, even rich people, well-to-do people. Doesn't matter, from all walks of life. That's an orientation. If you're Latino American, you're from Venezuela, if you're from wherever you're from outside the country, you don't have the same currency because you have a country you can go back to. Why would we be obligated to give you anything in America if you could go back to your country? Now, I know there's issues with America's colonization and all that stuff. That's a different argument. That's not an argument for Black Americans to even have. We can't even fix this shit with us yet. My point is this. All of this has been done that has America so divided, in my opinion, is done through the catalyst of people like Al Sharpton weaponizing blackness, using our struggle, our history, to try to help everybody else, to try to benefit other groups. All because I believe there's a bunch of kickbacks in it. There's a bunch of money in it. And none of that money comes to us. It goes to those people running those organizations. Just like BLM mostly benefited the people that were running BLM. I open my mailbox every day, like Chris Rock says. I look and I don't see my BLM check. That's the same way DEI works. That makes sense for you? You get it? So Reverend Al can take his DEI on MLK Day. It's like this asshole's up here arguing for black people to boycott Walmart, Amazon, all these companies, Facebook, all these companies, and I'm fine, boycott them. I don't give a shit. But don't use us to do it. Don't say it's because DEI. Say, hey, we'll boycott them because they don't have enough Black Americans. That would make sense to Black Americans. But for you to say, we should boycott them because everybody else, come on, everybody else. Hey, everybody. Everybody. We look around and it's just us doing like this. And ain't nobody there but us. I want to say 90% of the people that had the dog sick on them was black. Stop telling me. Stop telling me this is about everybody else. How is it going to be about everybody else when they have the Asian Exclusion Act that didn't even have Asians really in the country like that? I mean, please give me a break. So that's my point. That's why I wanted to cover Al. It ain't sexy, but it's true. It may hurt your feelings, but that's the raw truth Black Americans deserve to hear. When they talk about DEI, they ain't talking about us. Just pretend someone's talking about synchronized swimming. It don't have a goddamn thing to do with you. When they start talking that DEI mess, pretend they're talking about Beverly Hills 90210, some shit like that, okay? Because it don't have nothing to do with you. When they start talking about DEI, pretend they're talking about Tommy Lauren, Ben Shapiro. They're not talking about Black Americans when they talk about DEI. They're talking about all these other people. And they're just using you as the springboard. There you go. Give it up for that. Give it up for that. I said it, I'm not taking it back. Ralph Rodriguez. I'm not going to get baited, Ralph. You're not taking anything, Ralph. Migrants aren't taking our jobs. They're giving them our jobs. Nobody takes a job, Mr. Rodriguez. It sounds like you don't care about that. But I bet if Latino Americans were 40% of the homeless rate, or if 50% of homeless families were Latino, or whatever you are, Mr. Rodriguez, you might care a little bit more. 50% of homeless families are Black Americans. Entire families of Black Americans on the streets. That's got to be my concern, brother. If my name was Tim Rodriguez or Tim Brown, and I was fighting for you, you would want me to focus on that, wouldn't you? Yeah, kind of wear the shoe the other way. Like, put on my shoe. Black Americans are at the top of every list that's bad at the top and at the bottom of everything that's good at the bottom. And we got to fight. We got to change that. Okay? And if that's been happening while we've been having this immigration, that's a good reason for me to want to change it, isn't it? You understand? It ain't hate. It's not hate. It's being reasonable, realistic. All right, I'm out of here, guys. Thank you for being here.
Next on deck with Tim Black.
We're giving you this backlash because you are popping up a white supremacist.
Hey, I got a question, man. Is it possible that Kamala could be a white supremacist? Willie D. Nelly went on the Willie D show.
I thought you was riding with me because I put on for my city and I try to bring my city up every step of the way. I did not know you was riding with me because you thought I would ride for who you voted for. I didn't know that. I apologize. I apologize. I didn't know that I had to agree with your political choices. And I thought it was the things that you do, not the things that you say should be done. If you follow what I do, this shouldn't even be an argument. He's the president. He won. This isn't a campaign. This isn't an RNC. I'm not out on the political campaign. I didn't get none of that 1.5. You see what I'm saying? Like to try to help somebody get voted.
Kamala didn't invite you to
No. She didn't invite me.
She didn't invite me either, man. I was gonna be all at home.
Like, so, but I don't knock the ones that did. I don't knock the brothers and sisters that benefited from it. I don't knock the correspondents that may have.
Yeah, it's a lot of them, Nelly. Yeah, it's a lot of them. And the people that are complaining about you did not complain about them because to them, the Democrats mean black. This is the goofiest stuff in the world, man. Nelly's got a sound point. Very sound point. Yeah, they broke bread, but all these people got paid, took all these checks for Kamala. And now we're quiet. Are they responsible for Kamala's and Joe Biden's policies? No criticism.
Gotten money to do that. I'm not doing this for money. I'm doing this because it's an honor. I respect the office. It don't matter who is in office. The same way that our men and women, our brothers and sisters who protect this country have to go to war and have to put their life on the line for whoever in office. So if they can put their life on the line for whoever in office, I can damn sure perform for whoever.
What do you say to the people that say we're not giving you this backlash because of your political affiliation or your political choice or whatever? We're giving you this backlash because you are propping up a white supremacist.
Hey, I got a question, man. Is it possible that Kamala could be a white supremacist? Willie D. Willie D. Is Biden a white supremacist? I know it's going to get there. It's going to hurt. It's going, you know where I'm going, right? Because, let me get this right. You and D.L. Hughley are friends, right? You had D.L. on the show. He was taking money from, I know he was. He don't do that many events for free. He was taking money from Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris works for Joe Biden. Joe Biden, if Trump's a white supremacist, Biden is white supremacist grand wizard. Because he actually passed laws that hurt black people. We agree, right? You ain't gonna disagree. I know you can't talk back, but I can only imagine you're going, yeah, well, I guess you got me there. Okay, so why did you roast DL when he came on your show? Knowing he was out here tap dancing for Kamala, who was working for, and she said, all decisions made in that office, all decisions that Biden made, she was right there with him. Why didn't you have any smoke for that? Why didn't you have any smoke for DL when he came on the show? You know he was working closely with Kamala. Why didn't you ask those questions of him? I know why. Because that's your friend. Don't get mad. I'm just saying. I mean, everything you saying to Nelly, you should have said to DL. DL performed for Kamala, and back to my original point. Can Kamala be a white supremacist? If you work for a white supremacist, she's been working for a white supremacist for 4 years. Nelly went and performed one night, and Trump went in there. And he got to get the 3rd degree treatment. He got to get raked over the coals. And y'all funny, man. That's what I'm saying. There's no consistency. No consistency. None at all. I keep saying, man, we gotta do better. We gotta do better. Let's keep going. I'm sorry, guys. Let's keep going.
I would ask them to show me where he's a white supremacist. And here's the thing. Okay, I get it. He did say, if you don't vote for me, you're not black, right? Oh no, that wasn't him. That wasn't him. Hold on. I'm trying to think. Hold on. He did create
I know where you're going. I know where you're going.
He did create the crime bill in the 90s, which said that if you get caught with 5 grams of crack, you do a mandatory 5 years. That had mass incarceration. I think even the Vice President Kamala spoke on that part that said that the crime bill played a huge part. No, he didn't do that. Let me see. What did he do? I'm trying to think. The white supremacy. Hold on. I'm gonna get to it. Okay, he did not rent to black people. What was it, in the 70s or the 80s? Is that what they said? And like, okay, is he written to him now? So nobody's allowed to change, right? See, here's the thing. So we can talk about past, but we never want to talk about our past. If we bring up, if our past get brought up in our community for a lot of what our men did, we always call it rehabilitation. Yo, these young brothers, we've been through a lot. I know I've been through a lot. If my past was what was going to prevent me from winning today, I wouldn't be here. You know what I'm saying? Now, I'm not saying that he ain't got some fucked up ways. That's not what I'm saying at all. That's why I'm not telling you who to vote for. But what I'm saying is that he's the president of the United States.
Willie D. Claudication interview show how ignorant he is.
He's the president.
And Nelly went light on.
Won.
It's over. It's over. It's over. It's over. They still crying. It's over. Show brought to you by TimBlackMug.com. It's over, folks. This battle, this is pointless. Yeah, man, my main beef is that the same people complaining about these folks performing for Trump's inauguration or at the whatever event is in D.C. They didn't have any smoke for Glorilla, Megan Thee Stallion, John Legend, Eminem, countless others who performed for Kamala Harris on the campaign trail. That's because they actually think we need mass immigration. They think we need those things. We need to be involved in wars and send money to Ukraine and Israel perpetually. We need to do that. Somehow they think that stuff helps Black America. And the opposite of doing those things, they think ain't important. Yeah. And then they say they pro-Black. See, this is the raw truth Black American deserves. That's what this is. Yeah, I agree with you, Nelly. Go do what you do. It's not about you supporting Donald Trump. It's nothing to support. He won. He's president. If you didn't go, I wouldn't say nothing. If you do go, I won't say nothing. I wouldn't have a complaint either way because the battle continues. The fight for really helps Black people continues. This is a non-issue. In my opinion, it was a non-issue. Nelly, Soulja Boy, Rick Ross, they ain't trying to get you to vote for Trump. He's already president. Stupid ain't trying to get you to do nothing. Oh, man. These people tripping. When we need to be focused and locked in, we not. And when we're locked in and focused, it's on trivial things, doing the bidding of the Democratic Party. For what? I have no damn idea. All right, give it up for that, guys. Let me know what you think in the comments section below.
Today, on the Vince Everett Ellison Show, we are going to finish our discussion on the immorality of the civil rights leaders of the 1960s. Started on it yesterday, but didn't get a chance to finish it. So we're going to finish that up today. So we're going to talk about the immorality of the civil rights leaders of the 1960s. Today, on the Vince Everett Ellison Show. Let's get this thing started. You know, yesterday I started this talk on the myth that the civil rights leaders of the 1960s were moral. A lot of them are dead now. Some of them are still alive. But we had this myth in the Black community. These guys were like the 12 disciples going around, you know, especially after King died. You know, Abernathy and Jesse Jackson, Andrew Young, and anybody that had been affiliated with King and had touched the hem of his garment, you know, was sanctified. As nothing further from the truth. And y'all, I just scratched the surface on this stuff about these cats. I mean, these dudes. It's like traveling with a pervert circus. You find the most extreme groups of malcontents that you can find and put them in a circus together and just send them on tour throughout the city. That's what these guys were. And I always ask the question, what are the odds that 5 or 6 of the greatest perverts in America will end up in one organization called the SELC? You might end up with one pervert. You might end up with one guy that's kind of crazy and outlandish and others keep him in like, no, man, this was like, it was like the mafia of perverts. Just a bunch of sick jokers, man. So I'm going to tell y'all a little bit about them. I'm going to start in descending order with the least of them and go down to the ones that were really in charge. So, okay, so we start. Martin Luther King had a brother by the name of A.D. King. And A.D. will hang out with Martin Luther King Jr. Martin Luther King was the star. A.D. was his little brother. A.D. was a preacher. Everybody in the family was a preacher that was a man because, you know, it was just the company business. So, sadly, A.D. died in 1969. Martin Luther King died in 68. A.D. died the year after. They said he drowned in his swimming pool. From what's been written about some of the things that A.D. did, even though married with children, A.D. was kind of a wild dude. In David Garrow's book and in Taylor Branch's book, they talked about when Martin Luther King Jr. went to Sweden, Stockholm, to get the Nobel Peace Prize. I mean, that's a big deal, man. You got the King of Sweden. He's there. You got orchestra playing, and you got all the Nobel laureates there. I mean, it's like, it's swanky. You got to wear a tuxedo, and it's really, really a big deal. And so King brings his entourage there with him. And this is what they say. I wasn't there. This was 1964. I was 1 year old, so don't be trying to put this on me. I'm telling you about the guys King ran with and how all these guys were of the same feather. So they say, they said that after they gave King the Nobel Prize, well, you would think they'd go and have a nice dinner, go back to the restaurant, go back to the hotel. It's been a long day, man. You won the Nobel Prize, all these dignitaries around you, you're shaking hands, all that. Oh, no, not these brothers, not these Negroes. Oh, hell no, it's time to party. They say, now, man, this is so messed up. They say that a woman called Bayard Rustin, who, of course, was messed up his own self. We'll get into Bayard Rustin later. So Bayard Rustin was there in the hotel. And one of the people from the hotel, one of the people that didn't want to get King in no trouble, you just won the Nobel Prize, man. You don't want tabloids and all this kind of stuff involved in this. One of the people from the hotel called Bayard Rustin and said, Mr. Rustin, can you please get up there with Martin Luther King Jr. and his gang? Bayard said, what they doing? They said, A.D. King is he's naked chasing a prostitute down the hallway, saying that she stole his money. Now, can you imagine hearing that? You got to wake up in the middle of the night and somebody tell you some crap like that. The A.D. is naked, running down the hallway, chasing a white prostitute, saying that she got his money. Bayard Rustin got to go up there and straighten that up. And you say, okay, I think that's a harbinger. That some bad stuff is going to keep on happening down the way. These jokers have lost all impulse control problem. All impulse control. So Barry go up there and straighten that out. And I don't know how AD found a white prostitute in Sweden, but you know, I guess there's a special skill set that all of them had about finding hoes when they went somewhere. So the night of the mountaintop speech, King had went over to this woman's house and slept with her. And Ralph Abernathy says, and the wall came tumbling down. Again, I'm giving you my source. I wasn't there. I didn't see it. I'm telling you what was written. So Ralph Abernathy says, they drive up, it's raining, to the Rain Motel that night. Dr. King sees AD's car. He said, hey, AD, he said, let's see what AD's doing. They go to AD's room. Ralph says, now AD's married and got children. They said, well, AD was in the room with a white woman. That's what Ralph said. And was Martin Luther King Jr. alarmed? AD, what the hell are you doing in the hotel room with this woman HOA? Nah. He rolled up in there and him and AD, I don't know. But anyway, man. So anyway, that was AD. AD was just like MLK. They were not alarmed at each other's habits and what each other did, and they didn't try to reel each other in. They were codependent, it seemed like. Then they protected each other. Well, then we get to John Lewis. Now, as far as immorality is concerned with John Lewis, became a congressman. John Lewis wasn't so much as immoral. John Lewis is just stupid. John Lewis is so stupid you kind of felt sorry for him. They said that when he was a little boy on the on his people's place that he used to preach to chickens. So John Lewis never really had good sense. So when he joined SNCC and joined the Freedom Riders, what John Lewis became was a crash test dummy. He was good to get his ass whooped. Now they tear him up. They got more pictures of John Lewis bleeding from the head than they probably got him standing up in Congress making speeches. That joker would take a ass whooping and just, I mean, I didn't understand it. But he would go up there and he'd brag about taking them. And I heard a commercial one time in South Carolina. He did one for a guy running for Congress. And he's bragging about how many times he got beat up. I got beat down in the head 27 times. I forget how many times he said, but he was like proud of getting beat up and beat across the head. So they had written, the Soviet Union had said they were going to use the black community as cannon fodder for their movement. You know, that means just put them out there like Hezbollah does suicide bombers. Send them out there and let them get the hell beat out of them. While we sit up here and watch. They beat them down, we kill them, we put them all out there. They're expendable. Well, John Lewis was one of them. But they were just kind of amazed at the type of beat down John Lewis could get. He was like a Timex watch. He would take a licking and keep on ticking. And most people will take a whooping like that and say, I ain't gonna do this no more.
Go
John
on.
Lewis is almost like Joe Frazier. You just keep on coming. Wham, 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 wham. You keep on coming. So that's what John Lewis was good for. They would put John Lewis on the front line and say John Lewis can take punches. And John Lewis take like a hell of a lot of punches. And he just got famous for it. So when he ran for Congress, everybody saw how John Lewis had sacrificed his body for the civil rights movement, and they voted him in. I think they just kind of felt sorry for him. Because sometimes that happens. You know, you find a person that's been in the military, you see they took a whole lot of hits, and they run for office, and people will, you know, say, well, you know, you earned your right to be up in there because you took all these hits. Tammy Duckworth is a senator from the state of Illinois. She's a Democrat. And Tammy was a fighter pilot. And she had to have both her legs amputated from serving her country. And I salute her for it. And she's been elected, she got elected to Congress, elected to Senate. But some people, you know, they earned that in battle. And I guess black people kind of saw Lewis the way the people in Illinois saw Tammy Duckworth. They said, you know, you earned that in battle, man. You took the shots, boy. And he took them. So they're on the Edmund Pettus Bridge. And they didn't have a court order to march. The court had told them not to march. And John Lewis was going to march anyway. And they had those horses and billy clubs and hard hats on there that told them about not march. And John Lewis thought the white boys was playing. They weren't playing. They still got pictures of the beating them down right now on the Edmund Pettus Bridge. They got John Lewis doing this right here. Just whooping it. So John Lewis go back with a concussion, bleeding from the head as always. And if this just becomes, Bloody Sunday, John Lewis walked across the bridge again for the rest of his life, singing "We Shall Overcome." And I guess that song aggravates me, man. We shall overcome. What's overcome what? These jokers wound up coming down in private jets, millionaires, singing "We Shall Overcome." I said, well, overcome what? You jokers doing all right? What are we overcoming? If we need to overcome anything, it's these black Marxists in the Congress and their ignorance. Overcome the Democratic Party and their stupidity. And all these ignorant jokers ended up in the Democrat Party. John Lewis sure enough ran as a Democrat for Congress. Stayed there till he died. So John Lewis gets beat down at the Edmund Pettus Bridge. And I got a John Lewis story. So when I was running for Congress in 2000, I went up on Capitol Hill to confer with some Republican congressmen to see if I can get some support and raise some money, this, and that, and the other. So I'm up there with Congressman Jim DeMint, a few others. So I go to the house cafeteria to get something to eat with them, right? And so I got a name tag on because nobody knows who I am. I'm visiting. But the word got around. I was up there running against Jim Clyburn, black Republican. So I'm sitting down to get something to eat. John Lewis and a group of black Democrats sat across the table, looking at me, rolling their eyes at me. Of course, I was younger then. You think I mean now? I was
gang members.
I just got through working in the penitentiary 2 years earlier. All right, fight? Where? Let's get down, bro. So I'm staring back, right? John Lewis said, John Lewis was tired tongue because all them butt cuttings he had took that kind of messed up his brain a bit, right? So he couldn't really talk. So John Lewis said, looked at my name tag. Yeah, I see you over there, elephant. Sitting there eating with the enemy. I ain't nothing but a traitor. And I said to John Lewis, look back at us, I said, John, I ain't gonna hold that against you because I know you ain't at yourself from all them ass cuttings you took on the Edmund Pettus Bridge. John Lewis, let me tell you that, elephant. That grabbed John Lewis and hold him back. And I sat back and I started laughing because they had to grab him. Let me tell you that, elephant. I fought for your freedom. You ain't fought for nobody's freedom, man. Sit down somewhere. Before you get some more brain damage, swallow that light up the left side of your brain. It's one of my favorite memories of all time. Anyway, y'all, I'm sorry. Let me tell you that, elephant. I had to grab him and hold him back. It was hilarious. Oh, Lord have mercy. Anyway, he got so mad at me because I think I'm the first person to ever question, what he did on the Edmund Pettus Bridge in California. He got brain damage from it. But it was a classic moment. And it was one of the high points of my life to be able to jump on the civil rights crew, make them all mad. They all got mad at me. You talk to John Lewis like that, you know me. I was so mean. I just cussed them all out, called them all kind of terrible things I can't say on YouTube. And I've been on the enemies list ever since. So, but that was 25 years ago. They ain't killed me yet. So, so anyway, John Lewis got cancer. And he told everybody he was dying. And the last thing John Lewis did, he said, how reprobate his mind was. It was during the George Floyd's riots, and they had painted the Black Lives Matter Plaza in Washington, D.C. Y'all seen it. It's like they painted a big old mural. And John Lewis, in his last act of defiance, they rolled him out of the hospital bed, put him in a suit, got him out the car, and he just stood there on Black Lives Matter Plaza. And then everybody take pictures of it. Black Lives Matter is an atheist, Marxist, anti-family, pro-LGBTQ group. So John Lewis revealed in his death who he really was, a freaking Marxist. So that's John Lewis. Oh, let's go to one of my favorite ones. Reverend Justice, Reverend Al Sharpton, the man with the pompadour. Like I said again, if you want to see the contempt black liberals have for Black America, you just put on MSNBC and look at Al Sharpton and Joy Reid. Al Sharpton still got a conch in his hair, and the conch went out of style when David Ruffin left the Temptations in 1967. He still got a James Brown hairstyle. That's what y'all sick he is. So a lot of y'all don't remember Al Sharpton like I do. Al used to be real fat. I mean, just nasty fat. And he had that James Brown hairstyle, and he used to wear jogging suits and all kind of jewelry. He was just a horrible individual. He hadn't changed. So in New York City, when he first heard about Al Sharpton, this little black girl by the name of Tawana Brawley. She had stayed out all night against the wishes of her father. And when she came home, she told a lie to cover it up, said that she'd been grabbed by racist white people and they put feces all over her. And they put, I think they put KKK on her head. I don't know if it's KKK or not, but they did all these terrible things to her. And she came home with feces on her and stuff. Of course, the parents went to the police, and Al Sharpton got wind of it. Oh, that joker went out. Boy, they had the girl on the news, Al Sharpton screaming about this, that, and the other. It was horrible. Come to find out it was a lie. And that's how Al got famous. And Al got bit by that bug, and that joker ain't stopped since. He's been involved in all kind of shenanigans, all kind of crap since then. I mean, did y'all know Al Sharpton ran for president? Of course, as a Democrat. Al ran president, mayor of New York. He's involved in the Duke Lacrosse thing, the Jenna Six thing, Trayvon Martin thing. Him and Ben Crump has come together. Now, they the Justice Brothers. Whenever they find a black man got shot by a white cop, they show up and they sue the city. And then they share the money. That's the game they play now. So, but it's something else about Al Sharpton that's very, very interesting. Show you how messed up he is. When I was in Florida with Patrick Bet-David, the night that Trump won the presidency, at Valuetainment, he had, I mean, this was a gala. I don't think thousands of people were there. I was invited to be on the panel with Candace Owens. And I was up in the super VIP area. And the super VIP area was a place where you had to pay $25,000 a piece to be up in there. Yeah, that's the type of money these people had. I was in there for free, though. I didn't pay no money to get up in there, man. That's how I roll. So I was in the super VIP area, and I run into this guy who I recognize. His name was Michael Francisi. Francisi has a podcast of his own now. And Francisi was straight up mafia in the day. I mean, straight up, stone cold, deep, dark mafia. Francisi is so mafia, even when you see Francisi now, you say he mafia. So I recognized him, and I remember that Francisi had outed Al Sharpton, maybe 25 years ago. And he was on Real Sports with Brian Gumbel. He was explaining to Brian Gumbel some things about how the mob works. And he told Brian Gumbel that Al Sharpton had worked for the mob. And that he was bag man doing all kind of this and all kind of that. And he had FBI tape showing Al Sharpton taking bribes and everything. Yeah, and I remembered it. So it finally came out that it was true. That Al Sharpton was a bag man. He was with the Gambino crime family. And that he was selling drugs in the black community. That's what they say. Yeah, selling drugs in the black community. Al Sharpton was all behind all that. That's what they say. I didn't say it. Don't put it on me. I ain't never met Al Sharpton. If I did, I'd probably choke him out. Figuratively. So I don't know. That's what Michael Francesi said. So I walked up to Mr. Francesi. I said, Mr. Francesi, good to meet you. He said, hey, young man. And we started talking. I told him about the thing. He said, oh, man. He said, you remember that? I said, yeah. He said, boy, Sharpton was no good. He said, that guy was in and he was selling drugs and he said, man, I tell you what, man, we exchanged numbers. He said, I'm going to get you on my show and we're going to talk about it because your community needs to know about how terrible this guy is. I said, Mr. Francesi, you're going to get in trouble. Francis said, I ain't scared of, I ain't scared of, yes. That's okay. And he just told me Sharpton was no good. Never have been. Always sold your people out. I believe it to be true because of his past and what he continues to do. Just recently, Al found out that he gave an interview to Kamala Harris. Everybody thought it was a legit interview. He just wanted to talk to him. No, come to find out, he had to give him $500,000 to his organization. He got paid for it. That's who he is. The menthol cigarette people, they found out that menthol cigarettes are killing black people. Well, that menthol cigarettes made the addiction to nicotine much more prevalent, and that black people who smoked mostly smoked menthol cigarettes.
They scammers.
And the FDA wanted to ban menthol cigarettes. And Joe Biden was supposed to sign the executive order getting it done.
It's over.
And of course, the tobacco manufacturers didn't want to do that. So guess who they called? They called Al Sharpton. The Surgeon General said that if we ban these menthol cigarettes, we're going to save 300 to 600,000 black lives in the next few years. 300 to 600,000. So Al Sharpton didn't want people to know that he was working for the tobacco industry. So he hired Eric Garner and George Floyd's brother to go into the black community, do the dirty work for him. He paid them under the table. And Joe Biden didn't sign it. So he could have saved 300,000 to 600,000 black lives and chose not to because they gave him money. So I guess black lives don't matter when it comes to menthol cigarettes. And so when somebody asks Al, you getting paid to let these black folks die? I'm sure Al said, and? Am I getting paid? Yes, Al, but 600,000 black people are going to die. That's their problem. That's black leadership, y'all. Give it a hand. Al Sharpton, go Al, go Al, go Al. Then you got this guy by the name James Bevel. Y'all might not know about James, but y'all know his work. James was involved with Martin Luther King Jr. big time during the Civil Rights Movement. He wasn't like his organizer. He was like his shot master. He'd go in to a town and he'd organize people to march and he'd organize, sit-ins. And James Bevel was a little troublemaker. No joke about that tall. But that's like a lot of run women. So Civil Rights Movement ends. James Bevel just doing different things and dealing with different people doing different things. But James Bevel didn't stop with his perverted behavior because in order to be around Martin Luther King Jr., the number one prerequisite was not that you be a Christian or you be a minister. The number one prerequisite that you be a pervert. And James Bevel was an A1 pervert. Let me tell you what this sucker did. Later on in life, come to find out that James Bevel's daughters, I'll read it to you. So according to NBC News report, on October 15, 2008, Reverend James Bevel was arrested in May 2007 on charges of incest. The accuser was one of his daughters. She was between 13 to 15 years old during the times of the rapes. Later, 3 other daughters came forward and confessed that Bevel had also sexually abused them. He got 4 daughters that he was raping. So the daughter had set James Bevel up on a sting. She called him up, talked to him, led him into confessing on what he'd done. It said information from a phone call taken during the police sting operation was presented at the trial. It recorded a conversation between Bevel and his daughter without Bevel's knowledge. During the call, Bevel's daughter asked him why he had sex with her one time in 1993 and why he wanted her to use a vaginal douche afterward. Bevel said that he had no interest in getting his daughter pregnant. He was convicted of incest and sentenced to 15 years in prison. After 3 hours of deliberation, on November 4th, 2008, he received an appeal bond after being diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. He died December 19th, 2008. Isn't that interesting? He was arrested on May 2007. He went to prison April 2008. He was dead December 2008. God would not let him go to the grave without facing what he had done. Now we know. Yeah, one of King's cohorts. James Bevel, incest, raping his own daughters. And then we get to the juicy. The Reverend Jesse Jackson. Boy, Jesse was showing up a piece of work. Don't get messy with Jesse. Jesse Jackson, I remember about maybe 15 years ago when it came to find out that Jesse had fathered an outside child. It ain't the child's problem, so we don't want to talk about the child. But Jesse walking around talking about all this stuff. He's a reverend, and then he fathered an outside child. Yeah, Jesse Jackson. They caught him on a hot mic saying that he was going to castrate Barack Obama, so he's going to cut off his, calling black people N-word. But worse than that was directly after the assassination of Martin Luther King, the actions of Jesse Jackson, which are amazing. A lot of people don't know what Jesse Jackson did. King had gotten shot, and he of course had died, and they were all they had left him at the hospital. They came back to the Lorraine Motel. They had all decided that nobody was going to talk to the press, nobody was going to go anywhere, that we would all stay together, and they were going to organize what they were going to do and say and this and the other. Of course, Jesse said, okay. Well, they said that Martin Luther King never ever trusted Jesse Jackson for a whole lot of reasons. And Martin saw in Jesse a Machiavellian type of mindset. So Ralph Abernathy writes about what Jesse did after the Lorraine Motel, after King had got shot. This is what Ralph says. He said, it seems that shortly after the ambulance had left, the press had on the place cameras and crews and reporters, local staff, network, all eager to put someone on camera to tell the story. Jesse and Jose had both agreed that until they knew what had happened, they would avoid the press and stay out of sight. At least that's what Hosea had thought was the understanding. So he was more than a little surprised to look out the window and see Jesse Jackson standing in front of several cameras speaking into a microphone that a reporter was holding in his face. Curious, Hosea slipped outside and eased up behind Jesse, though on the other side of the chain link fence. Yes, Jesse was saying, I was the last person he spoke to as I was cradling him in my arms. Just a lie. King had just left in the ambulance and Jesse Jackson was lying, saying he was cradling him in his arms. He was the last person that spoke to him. Jesse was nowhere around King when he got shot. He was down in the parking lot. With a roar of anger, Hosea started cursing and halfway up the chain fence before one of the others pulled him down and held him until his anger had cooled. But Jackson had told the same story, or nearly the same, the morning on the Today Show. So he went on to the Today Show, told the same lie. Indeed, that afternoon, Jesse appeared before the Chicago Council wearing a bloodstained shirt. A bloodstained shirt a fake blood-stained shirt. Martin Luther King Jr. was dead, hadn't been dead 24 hours. Jesse Jackson had gone and got a shirt and put fake blood on it. A fake blood, wearing a blood-stained shirt, saying that it was the same shirt he had been wearing the previous evening when he held Martin. On June 23rd, 1987, the Washington Post confirmed the story. Think about this, y'all. Supposedly your best friend has just got killed in front of you. You're supposed to be in the fetal position, crying your eyes out. I don't know. Jesse Jackson has the wherewithal to get in front of the cameras and lie and say, I was holding him when he died, left and got a bloody shirt, put fake blood on it, say he was holding him, he was cradling him when he died. All of it a lie. That's Jesse Jackson. Remember, Jesse Jackson went before he was on his plane running when he was running for president. And they asked him about going to New York City. He called New York Hammy-town. Hammy-town, Hammy is a slang for being a Jewish person. Yeah, Jesse, we're going to Hammy-town. And this reporter wrote it just after, yeah, I'm sorry, I messed up. Dude was anti-Semitic, called black folks the N-word, running women, got outside child, holding Dr. King, lying about the assassination of Dr. King, your best friend.
Yeah, Barron is a
Lordy. But these are the people that led the civil rights movement. These bunch of weirdos, malcontents, and perverts. And then the very last
Piece of Hut.
Barrett Rustin. Barrett Rustin be a hero now. At that time, Barrett was openly gay. He had got caught having sex in the parked car with two white gentlemen. Barrett had been a communist, probably still a communist. Barrett was the one that introduced Martin Luther King Jr. to Stanley Levinson, who was a real communist. And they formed the SELC. They wrote the bylaws. They did all of this stuff. Barrett Rustin was a stone cold communist. He was a stone cold freak. He was running around. Dr. King said, we got to keep the little boys away from Barrett because if Barrett see one, he's sure going to grab it. And they all started laughing. So they laughed about how Barrett Rustin loved grabbing little boys and sexually assaulting them. Yeah. So these are your leaders of the civil rights movement. Jokes that led you to the bottom of everything in the industrialized world. The ones that led you to the worst school system, family destroyed, half the male population in jail, economic distress, still riding 60 years later because of the leadership of these bunch of morons and malcontents and ne'er-do-wells and just straight up stupid, imbecile perverts. But I bet white liberals sitting back just laughing their behinds off at black people. Look at what we gave. We gave them the Three Stooges to be their to be their heroes. Joke was worse than the Three Stooges. Y'all, we gotta talk about this. If they had, if we were where the Jewish community is right now, we wouldn't be talking. If we were where the Asian community is right now, we wouldn't be having this conversation. We'd be holding these guys up, and I'd be right with you. If we were where the people that are descendants from Indian descent right now, I'd be right with you, holding you up. Yeah, man, we doing great. If we were just where the first generation Africans that came from Africa, from Nigeria, are, I'd be marching with you on the civil rights days. Now we're at the bottom, and we're still celebrating failure. But haven't I given you some great information today so you can reevaluate yourself and see how no good these jokers are? Oh, and I ain't finished. Because as I told you before, I am here to wake you up. Hope I did you some good today.
inclusion programs at the federal level. And let's go ahead on and look into this, because as you can clearly see, what we need is FBAs. Let's check this out. As Trump escalates campaign against diversity, threatens private sector probes. Now they're saying here that Trump, escalated his campaign against diversity programs on Tuesday by pressuring the private sector to join the initiative and telling government employees in offices administering such programs they will be placed on paid leave. And so on his first day of office, Trump issued a series of executive orders to end diversity, equity, inclusion programs that attempt to promote opportunities for women. Now, when they say women, they mean white women. Ethnic minorities means anyone outside of white. Of course, we know what LGBT is, and other traditionally underrepresented groups. It says civil rights advocates have argued such programs are necessary to address longstanding inequities and structural racism. These programs will never address racism. They won't. So I don't know why, who's these civil rights advocates? That Trump and his supporters say DI programs end up unfairly discriminating against other Americans and weaken the importance of candidates' merit in job hiring or promotion. Now, say an executive order issued on Tuesday, Trump revoked executive orders dating as far back as 1965 on environmental actions, equal employment opportunities, and encouragement to federal contractors to achieve workforce balance on race, gender, and religion. They say the 1965 order that was revoked was signed by then President Lyndon Johnson to protect the rights of workers employed by federal contracts and ensure that they remain free from discrimination on the basis of race, color, religion, sex, sexual orientation, gender identity, or national origin. According to the Labor Department, said Trump, the executive order seeks to dissuade private companies that receive government contracts from using DEI programs and hiring on the basis of race or sex, as they would the order called illegal DEI, discrimination and preferences. They're saying that it asks the government agencies to identify private companies that might be subject to civil investigation. So as part of this plan, each agency shall identify up to 9 potential civil compliance investigations of publicly traded corporations, large nonprofit corporations or associations, foundations with assets of $500 million or more, state and local bar and medical associations and institutions of higher education with endowments over $1 billion. They say full details of how the Trump administration would enforce civil compliance investigations were not immediately available. So the order issued on Tuesday stipulates that the federal and private sector employment preferences for military veterans could continue. They say the order, was celebrated by conservative activists and Republican leaders. It's also met with condemnation from civil rights leaders who are strategizing on how to respond to Trump's actions. Of course, we know Al Sharpton has something to say. And it said he formally announced Wednesday the organization is partner plans to identify 2 companies in the next 90 days that will be boycotted for abandoning DEI pledges. Now, we know Walmart was kind of hit with a backlash for those similar things. They're saying that we're reading this for a reason, so just bear with me. They say Basil Smeagol, it's a political strategy policy advisor, said he was troubled by the Trump administration's assertion that diversity programs were diminishing the importance of individual merit, aptitude, hard work, and determination because it suggests that women and people of color lack merit or qualifications. They say this effort to hinder, if not erode, the political and economic power of people of color and women. They say when it opens up the door for more cronyism. Okay. Let's say the White House did respond to a request to address the civil rights advocates. Trump also instructed the federal government departments and agencies to dismantle all DEI programs, advise employees of such programs that they will be immediately placed on leave. They said the government should, by the end of the business on Wednesday, inform employees of any government offices or units focused on exclusive DEI. Their program will be shut down and employees placed on leave. The Office of Personnel Management said in a memorandum. Okay. So he also signed a memorandum on Tuesday to end the Biden administration to promote diversity in the FAA and order the FAA administration to immediately stop DEI hiring. He ordered the FAA to conduct safety review that will replace any employees who fail to demonstrate their competence. And so now we want to talk about that because a lot of people are speaking about Trump ending these DEI programs. A lot of people are upset about this. You have to remember this diversity, equity, and inclusion programs was not birthed out of the Black community. FBAs didn't fight for that, didn't campaign for that. The DEI program came up with the uprising of George Floyd. Corporations started coming up with this diversity, equity, inclusion programs to make themselves seem like they were, lockstep with, the black community because of what we were talking about, a lot of racism, white supremacy at the time when the uprising of George Floyd. We did not fight for that. We did not create that. We didn't do any of that. Then when you start looking into the DEI programs, who was the main beneficiary of DEI programs? It was white women. It was not even black women, right? White women were leading diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. White women got hired more. And if it wasn't white women, it was white LGBT had got hired more with DEI programs. DEI was the remix of affirmative action. And we know Black Americans, FBAs, did not benefit from affirmative action at all. We did not. It was a come up for white women. It was a come up for white LGBT. Maybe a couple of black people got sprinkled in here and there, but it was mostly a benefit to them. So them getting rid of DEI programs and things like that, I think is a good thing. Let me tell you why. If a corporation, this is where I'm gonna start looking at the corporations, or even made so about a little bit about in where you shop. If the corporations are very quick to roll that back and they start having this attitude toward black people, they stop hiring black people, then this is how I take it. If you don't hire black people, then you don't need my money because you don't really hire no black people here. You don't want black people here. See, let me tell you something what they want to do. And they want to try to roll things back where everybody is just all white everything. And it's not going to work. Now, I know some of you Democrat shields will say, that's what we tried to tell you. Kamala wouldn't have been doing all that. No, she wouldn't have done that. But here's what she would have been doing. She would have piled on 13 million more migrants on top of what we have now. She would have made sure to take resources that are supposed to go to FBAs and give it to the migrants. That's what she would have done. And that alone is one of the main reasons why I say, oh, no, not her. Trump, he's already started mass deportations, right? I don't depend on DEI programs for nothing. And the majority of you who are out here, who are black, who are working, you didn't get hired because of some DEI program. You didn't. So let's not even go there. Like if they take away, they're going to take away a DEI program. Man, they can take away whatever program they want to take away. Let me tell you something about black folk. Black folk gonna be just fine. We are survivors. We know how to make $1 out of 15 cents. We are innovative people. We know how to do what we need to do as a people. These people have thrown everything at us, and we still survive, and we keep moving, and we improve every year. Everything these people have done to us, we should be extinct already. I mean, seriously. But yet we're still here as a people. So like all that mess that they talking about DEI and getting rid of this and get rid of that and merit and all that. We know the BS with the merit. The merit thing is a cover. We know that. But let it happen. Let it happen. Because one thing that I like to see is this going to force my people to get their act together. You understand? This is going to force my people to take that leap into creating their own business where they ain't got to worry about nobody's DEI program. They ain't got to worry about begging these people for anything. They don't have to worry about it. You understand what I'm saying? Now, if a corporation say, nah, we don't care what he say, we're going to continue doing this. Okay, then let you know what their intentions are. And if a corporation say, yeah, let's hurry up and get rid of it. Yeah, let's do that. Well, they wouldn't really mean that from the start. They will just want to get the black dollars, right? So yeah, let's pay attention to corporations that mean it, and the corporations that's going to stand on business on it, because he can't force a private corporation to get rid of diversity, equity, inclusion programs. He can't force them to do that. Now, could they sue him about it? Sure, but that's going to make them look bad. It's not going to make the corporation look bad. It's just that simple. And this all fluff. Be honest with you, this is a bunch of fluff. This is to make his base happy, but I'm gonna say something to that ignorant side of his base. Let me say something to them. You can get rid of all the DEI programs you want. You still not getting a job. You're not getting one because you can go get one right now. All the migrants that Trump about to get out of here, there's gonna be a lot of jobs for white people to get. There's gonna be a lot, and all them jobs on them farms, go get them. Because trust me, Black folks not fooling with the farms. So you go get those good farm jobs out there. Go work for those farmers. It's in your community. Go work for them. There's going to be a lot of jobs available before you go work, right? You don't have to worry about no DEI program. You ain't got to worry about no migrant. Go out there and work those jobs. But here's the kicker. You don't want to go work those jobs. Even if they open up tomorrow, you don't want to work those jobs. No. You too good to work those jobs. But listen, my people going to be all right. Because like I said, we were fine before DEI. You know, there was an America before DEI and black folks were just fine. I remember it. There was an America before TikTok too. And we were just fine. We communicated very well. I'm just saying that we ain't always had certain things. And so if black folks were fine before DEI, black folks will be fine after it too. We always going to be okay because we God's children. Now the rest of these people, podcast, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, Boule Martin, I guess his plan for the next 4 years is try to scare y'all and then say, oh, you see, you should have voted for Kamala. Boy, Trump gonna get you. So Boule Martin is starting off already. Let's go ahead on and check out what Boule Martin posted up here, and then really won't bust out Boule Martin really at the same time because Boule Martin is actually giving out some actual misinformation because they love to say that word in the Democrat circles. Now, Boule Martin says, we tried to tell you, a whole lot of y'all who talk ish about not voting for VP Kamala Harris are about to have some mamas, daddies, aunts, uncles, siblings, cousins, and friends out of work. Trump plan to slash federal jobs, put black workers at risk. Now, let's talk about that. Why are you sitting up here like almost gloating about someone who could potentially, not to say they will, potentially to be laid off? Why? Well, let's actually go to the article to see why Bloomberg even wrote this like this, because it don't make sense why they wrote it this way based off of the numbers you're about to see. All right. So Bloomberg, Trump plans to slash federal jobs. It said federal job puts black workers at risk. Black workers make up a large share of public sector employees. Government jobs have provided a pathway for economic stability. Now, when you see I'm going to show you exactly the percentage of what black people are working in the federal government. And you tell me why black people will be put at so much risk. All right, so let's kind of go here. So it says Trump's plans to shrink the federal workforce could have a desperate impacts on black employment, or potentially eroding a key conduit to economic mobility that many black families have relied on for generations. Some researchers say a substantial cutback could push the black unemployment rate higher, particularly in areas like Washington, D.C., where black joblessness is among the highest in the country. Yeah, and with a black mayor, Muriel Bowser, why is that black woman not making sure black folks are employed? Says such an outcome would stand at odds with Trump's campaign promises to protect black workers' jobs and provide them with more employment opportunities. Trump has pledged to move 100,000 government jobs out of Washington, eliminate tens of thousands and more, and require federal employees to come back to the office, a policy that could be done via executive order shortly after he takes office next week. So the makeup of federal employees means black Americans would be disproportionately impacted by such a downsizing. So they say about 378,000 black Americans accounted for roughly 19% of the permanent federal workforce in fiscal 2022. The latest data available from the Office of Personnel Management that was higher than black American share of overall U.S. population. By contrast, white Americans' 60% share of the federal workforce is smaller than their representation. You can't listen. This 13 points. We're not 13%. But how you gonna sit up here and say black people? You have to watch how these people write things. If 378,000 black people are working federal jobs, There's 43, you know, you want to account with, let's say 40, they say 47, but let's say 45. Because you got to account for about 2 million black immigrants. So let's say 45 FBAs, 47 million with black immigrants. This has nothing to do with the overall population. That's only 378,000 according to y'all. Now, look at the white number. The white people hold the majority, more than half of all federal jobs. So if you're going to have a person be affected the most, wouldn't it be the white people? Because they hold the most federal jobs. Now, if the white number stays 60% and they do the job cuts and black people cut down to 9%, then we could say, okay, now that was targeted, because that doesn't even make sense based on the numbers. Because the numbers would say, if you're going to slash jobs, then you will slash most of the people who white that's working these jobs, because they hold more jobs. Black people don't hold all the jobs. Then you look at Latinos, they don't hold many of the jobs either, right? So, but the reason why they wrote it like this is say, oh, this can, you know, hurt black people, because remember, we talked about this in the stream. They need black people to speak out, because trust me, Trump is coming after all these jobs, not just the black people. They coming after the white ones too. And one thing this white guy said online, never forget it. He said the reason why they want black people to speak up is because nobody listens to when a white person advocates for anything. Nobody listens. They only listen when black people. So in order to save this number, they need to rile up these people. Understand? To save this group, you got to rile up this group to speak out and do the heavy lifting. And this group going to benefit while this group will still be losing something. You understand? And what I tell FBAs is, don't sit up here and fight to save these people jobs. Let them go out there and fight with Trump to save their own doggone jobs. They say we're talking about tens of thousands of black workers. They say who could lose their jobs. And Michelle Holder, associate professor at John Jay College, City University of New York, say it would be pretty devastating to the black community writ large, just in terms of loss of income. They say a loss of benefits and potential loss of health insurance. You know what? I've been fired on jobs. I've been laid off too. You know what? I'm okay. Now, I don't want nobody to lose no job. Trust me, I don't. And I'm not trying to be insensitive about losing a job. But what I'm saying is, this is written to stir black people up. That's what it's about. This is not written to save no job for black people. Then they start talking about how we have high levels of unemployment, but yet you don't do nothing about it, right? Then you start talking about how the government provides stable work for many black families and all of that, and all this stuff they're talking about, right? But let me tell you something. The federal government do waste a lot of money. It's the truth. The federal government wastes a lot of money. And they when you look at the budget, when you're spending more than you're taking in, then you have to start cutting spending. And then let's call it what it is. I've talked to people. I was one guy that told me he worked at NASA. And he said that they had ordered these treadmills, some specialized treadmills that cost $1 million each. And they were supposed to do some testing for the astronauts. And they did maybe say 10 minutes on that thing. And then that was the end of it. Spent $1 million on, he said, 3 treadmills for $3 million. And I say, you serious? He said, yes. He said, and they just spend the government money like it ain't nothing. So it's so much wasteful spending. They got people in the federal government that's doing jobs that probably somebody else can do. Maybe they can take up a different role or whatever, right? I mean, the government overspent a lot of money. You remember when they were going through the spending bill a few months ago, and they started looking through it and they said, wait a minute, look how big the spending bill is. But then when they start finding out where the money was going and they start cutting it out, then the spending bill got smaller. You understand? No, they want FBAs to get riled up, to be speaking out and fighting with Trump about these jobs to save white folks' jobs. It's just that simple. As black people, we used to getting fired. We used to getting laid off. I mean, it happens. No job is guaranteed unless you got a contract and then they got to pay you out your contract. But even if you got your contract, you can get fired. Look at your boy, Don Lemon. He had a contract with CNN. They fired him. And he was with them for 20 some odd years. They still fired Don Lemon. They gave him his money in his contract, but he still got fired. He ain't got that job no more. So what I'm saying is no job out here is guaranteed, bro. None. The best thing you can do is get yourself set up when you have a job, save your money, work a lot of overtime to save your money. Make sure your affairs taken care of and all of that. Like, so that way, if you listen, you should try to save enough money where at least, you got enough money to pay your bills for 6 months, while you're still looking for work, that's one thing. But them downsizing, if they've been there long, they probably give them a severance package. Probably. But if you are a federal worker and you're a black person, don't be fearing that junk. You fear God. Yes, who you fear. You don't fear that. But Boule Martin want to keep black people riled up and in fear about Trump and all that because he don't know what to do in these 4 years. He really don't. And you're going to see him try to crash out, but nobody respects Roland. Nobody does. Because he has truly shown himself as a sellout Democrat shield. And people is not really down for that. But as a person who's been laid off, as a person who's been fired, every time that's happened to me, I've went to a better job that made more money every single time. So I can't even say I feel bad about getting fired or laid off because I've always went into better situations in the end. And sometimes I say, hey, okay, if they lay you off, okay, cool. That means God got something better for me. And he wanted to put me in position. That's why he allowed that to happen. And that's how you got to look at it, black people. Don't sit up here and get scared about losing no doggone job. As long as you got your life, as long as you get in your right mind, you could walk, you could talk, you can go make some money.
Kofi, follow me.